Good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021. It is 9:03 a.m. My name is Ty Mentor, Chair of the Board. Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards is on the Zoom portal, and we will be having Commissioner Carolina Mejia joining us shortly. The meeting is live, and here she is. The meeting will be live streamed on our Thurston County YouTube channel. There's no longer.
Sorry.
You good?
Can you repeat that again?
Start over?
Is it okay if we sit here?
No.
No? Oh, well, I can't see the Zoom.
Let me turn this for you.
Oh. All right.
Will that work?
Yeah. All right, take two.
Sorry.
Thurston County. Good morning and welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021. It's 9:04 a.m. My name is Ty Mentor, Chair of the Board. To my right is Commissioner Carolina Mejia, and Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards is on the Zoom portal and will be joining us physically in a few moments. The public can follow along on our Thurston County YouTube channel or here in the boardroom. We no longer have the conference call access line. And to my left is County Manager Amiro Chavez. We have Clerk of the Board Amy Davis and our Public Information Officer Megan Porter. So with that, let's get going. We've got our standing COVID-19 update first up on the agenda, and I see Dr. Abdelmalik as well as Shelley Slaughter, our Director of Public Health and Social Services. Dr. Abdelmalik, of course, is our County Health Officer. Shelley?
Good morning, Commissioners. Today is day 503 of Thurston County's emergency COVID response. In Washington State, to date, there have been 447,724 confirmed cases of COVID-19 since this pandemic began, with 5,838 Washingtonians that have died. This includes 10,874 confirmed cases in Thurston County and 110 of our residents that have lost their lives, to include a 34-year-old that passed away this last week due to COVID. There have been 665 people hospitalized to date, and current hospital capacity in our region is 86.8% of beds are occupied, with 6.5% of those acute beds occupied by people with COVID. 12.9% of our area ICU beds are occupied by COVID patients at this time. Our test positivity rate since last week has crept up a little bit, 4.6% positivity. There is testing widely available in our community. Today our public health mobile testing team will be at Rochester Organization of Families. We will also be in City of Lacey, Union Gospel Mission, and Evergreen State College this week. There have been 60 congregate outbreaks to date, with five that our outbreak team is currently investigating, including the Thurston County Correctional Facility. In terms of vaccinations, to date, our Thurston County vaccine providers, which includes Thurston County Public Health, have administered 278,535 doses of COVID-19 vaccines. 50.8% of our total population has initiated at least one dose of vaccine, and 45.6% of our population is fully vaccinated. Again, this includes our total population, including children under age 12 who are not yet eligible for the vaccine. A metric that we've been looking at closely because it aligns with the governor's goal to get Washington State to 70% by the end of this month. Thurston County is at 60.75% of 16 and older that have initiated at least one dose of COVID vaccines. 54.9% of people 16 and older in Thurston County are fully vaccinated. So that is good news. In terms of kids ages 12 and up, 59.2% of people age 12 and over have initiated at least one dose of vaccine. We have many vaccine clinics available. We are at the Capitol Mall in Olympia 7 days a week now. We have an interior store next to the Buckle store on the Sephora REI side of the mall that operates during mall hours. I encourage anyone who is interested to stop on by. You do not need an appointment. And we also have many other mobile clinics that we are offering in partnership with organizations in our community upcoming this next week, including the Lacey Food Pantry, Salish Middle School, Good Shepherd Church, and many others. So I encourage people looking for a vaccine site to check out our Thurston County Public Health and Social Services website for all the vaccine clinic details as well as vaccine locator. And with that, I will pass it to our health officer, Dr. Abdimalik, to share anything further.
Good morning, commissioners. We are continuing to see a steady decline in transmission rates in our county. Most recently, we are at 92.8 cases per 100,000 population over the past 14 days. We are encouraged, and I'm encouraged by our vaccination rates, and I'd like to encourage everyone who's eligible to access vaccine and become vaccinated. This is our best opportunity to slow the spread and to protect ourselves going forward. We are seeing some of the COVID-19 variants in our county. The most common variant isolated is the B117 variant, with 81 cases isolated. This is also known as the UK variant, and is also one of the variants that is most commonly isolated both in Washington State and at a national level. This is followed by the B1429 variant, which is one of the California variants. We're tracking these variants very closely. Variants arise and spread when folks are able to transmit COVID. So I just want to remind everyone in our community that if you're not fully vaccinated, meaning that fully vaccinated folks are folks that are 2 weeks beyond the completion of a COVID-19 vaccine series, whether that's 1 dose or Johnson & Johnson or 2 doses of Pfizer and Moderna. 2 weeks after that final dose of whichever series you choose, you're considered fully vaccinated. Folks who aren't, it's really essential to remain masked, maintain that 6 feet or more of distance between oneself and non-household members in public indoor spaces. Variants occur when transmission occurs, so I just want to encourage everyone to limit the spread of COVID-19. And with that, I'm open to any questions you may have. Thank you so much.
Okay, questions for either Shelley or Dr. A? Commissioner?
I spoke with Shelley about some of the numbers last week that I had requested, but Shelley, just for clarification, could you give them again, please?
Absolutely, yes. The question that I believe you're referring to, Commissioner Mejia, last week was regarding our mall clinic and how many people are coming. And the average for both our mobile and now interior vaccine location averages about 17. And overall, in the last week, just to put that in context, Thurston County Public Health administered 856 doses in the last week, and that included clinics that were mobile community-based clinics, our mall clinics, as well as our South Puget Sound Community College site, which stands down at the end of this week.
Okay, thank you. As we're opening back up, I'm seeing a lot of parades and festivals. Are we attending those? I happen to be at a couple this weekend, but I just thought, as more people are going out to those, have we thought about putting mobile vaccination clinics kind of like what you did outside the mall in these specific areas?
Absolutely, yes. We are happy to do so for any organization that is holding a festival or some other kind of special event. Please contact us. Our contact information is on our website, and we would love to offer a mobile clinic. We have had our mobile unit at several different locations and events, and I know that the Tumwater 4th of July parade coming up will be offering a mobile vaccine offered by Providence.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Edwards, any questions? Can you hear me, Commissioner?
Yes, I can hear you. I thought I was off. No, I don't have any questions this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Shelley, just a clarification of a number you gave that I missed it when you said the number that relates to the 70% goal of the state. Did you say 67.5 or 60.75?
60.75.
Okay. And last week we were, I think, 59 something. So, and you've been saying it's like a 1 to 1.5% a week or something is kind of where we've petered out to, sort of, you know, like
yes.
That way. Okay. All right. And that stayed pretty consistent then over this last week. Sounds like it.
Yes, it has.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you both for your time. Oh, sorry. County manager asked a question.
Hey, Shelley, can you give us a perspective in terms of, we have seen a decline on the daily cases as Dr. Abdelmalek suggested, and although we see an increase in the positivity rate from last week, provide additional clarification that you could, please.
I would actually ask if Dr. Abdelmalek had insight into that. Dr.
So that's definitely something that I've been watching. I have been seeing that the overall trend in our transmission rate is calculated based on positive tests in our community, and our test positivity rate is the proportion of tests that are performed that turn up a positive result. We have been overall downtrending. When we see a spike in that test positivity rate, it makes us think about access to testing. So that was something that I was looking at yesterday, and I just wanted to remind the public that we do have multiple, that in addition to Thurston County Public Health, there are multiple providers that do provide a COVID-19 vaccine testing at, you know, some have drive-through testing, and it's very easy to get that test. But in terms of overall, we're downtrending in our test positivity. This is a slight increase, and I'm still looking to see whether or not it's sustained.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're good on that. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Dr. A.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I think Keely was scheduled to be out of the office today. I don't know if she's still here or not. Something changed. Keely, are you there? Or is Tom?
Commissioners, this is Tom Webster.
Okay.
Keely is not available today to give her updates. I don't have her. I haven't talked to her this morning, so I don't have an update for you other than I know she is working on preparing for the hot weather that is coming this weekend. We're expecting high temperatures, so I know she's reaching out to outreach organizations and the city of Olympia around identifying potential for cooling centers. Right now, we do not have any cooling centers for this weekend identified for those who are living outside, but we are increasing outreach activities to provide water and other supplies during the hot weather. But I know Keely is working on that. So sorry for the abbreviated update this week, but that's what I have for you. Happy to try to answer any questions if you have them.
Burning question to ask Tom, Commissioner Mejia.
No, Tom, thank you.
Commissioner Edwards.
No questions.
I'll just, something, Tom, I'm
No
gonna
questions.
report on this afternoon, but had a chance last week to take a tour of the micro shelters, both where they're placed, sited downtown, as well as the staging area and construction area at the port. And I think that the way that project evolved, I know they were able to leverage the initial investment by the county into more money. Providence contributed money that I was unaware of until I spoke with some of the folks involved last week. Olympia increased its investment over the course because some of the parameters of what they were gonna do changed. And the units themselves are not what we were originally shown. They're far better. What we originally looked at was something that was, as I called it, something like a Rubbermaid shed almost type of a structure, which was more durable and could be kept cleaner. There were reasons to do that, but what they ended up designing and constructing was much closer to a tiny home. And so I was very impressed by the work done, and they got, of course, a lot of donated materials and labor. But even if they had not, the units are relatively affordable compared to some other options that we look at. And I guess I just raised this just so that folks are aware that what we ended up with there was a lot better, and at no further investment of the county, but with using the leverage and the energy of the community, we got a product that was a lot better than what we thought we were getting. And I think it really, when we talk about these really short-term transitional housing options, I think it's a completely different conversation if you talk to elected officials or the community about siting units like that versus a tent camp. Even if it's an organized tent camp like the mitigation site was, this looks a lot more like Plum Street Village, and a much more probably acceptable to the community. And again, it's transitional. It's not somewhere someone is intended to live for years, but I think it presents opportunity for conversation, and I know that the Regional Housing Council and Commissioner Mejia will, I'm sure, engage in that, but I just want everybody to know that I took that tour and I was very impressed by what was the result of that. So, Commissioner Mejia.
What organization is that with?
I think it was called Earth
Homes, I believe.
Yeah, Earth Homes. I know it has 2 words and it started with Earth.
Yeah, and they have, I know Keeley had recent conversations with them and engaging with them. They're interested in seeing where else in our community they can take their efforts. So Keeley is engaged in conversations with them about future opportunities.
Great, County Manager.
Maybe a good opportunity, Tom, Shelley, and Keeley, for the 4 of us to have a conversation to see if we can provide a formal update to the board in terms of how successful this particular investment has been, and maybe taking some pictures. And I think it will be good for the public even to realize, what we once thought, as Commissioner Messer stated, the board made decisions based on a picture. The end result is totally different. So I think it would be great to have that perspective and that visual, not just for the board, but also for the citizens.
And I bring this up because there's federal relief money, and this board has not made any decisions, but there was preliminary suggestion that purchasing a hotel might be the best way to get immediate transitional housing available to the community with, and I just think that there may be a broader array of options potentially with something like this, or a mixture of the two, something for us to think about as we try to figure out how to best deploy those resources. Okay, thank you, Tom. That's item 2, homeless strategies update. Keeley will be back next week, presumably. Item 3 is a review of this afternoon's board agenda for the June 22nd meeting, and we'll start that at 2 p.m. with a calling the meeting to order, pledge of allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Edwards, consideration of the agenda and board meeting minutes from last week's meeting, opportunity for the public to address the board then, and followed by county manager's update. Anything for the county manager's update?
Yeah, I have an update, and so I'm gonna work a little bit of a fine lining here. You received public testimony last week from Mr. Pettit related to some questions related to the amendment to the capital facilities plan, what we call a minor amendment. And he outlined several questions in his testimony, as well as he followed up with a written form of that. I believe that was one of the items the board discussed in an executive session on Thursday. I did not participate in that, on that executive session, so I will not be able to actually address directly those questions, unfortunately. But I have asked staff from CPED, they could outline the process related to the amendment during the public hearing that is scheduled for this afternoon, during the staff's presentation. That will be my response to Mr. Pettit's comments that he made last week.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards? Anything for Ramiro on that item? Okay, I'll assume he's good. Okay, consent items, we have 3. A, B, and C. 3A is Human Resources, resolution to amend voluntary employees beneficiary association plan.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. You reviewed this item last week. And back in 2019, the Board of County Commissioners approved implementing the Voluntary Employees Beneficiary Association, which is the VEBA. What allows on the regular employees, this program is at the time of retirement, they can get whatever's left on their vacation and sick leave, they can put it to what we call the VEBA account, and that will help them to pay medical expenses in their retirement years. That's the concept of that. However, the Sheriff's Association has a little bit different approach to this. And in fact, they have been contributing over the last couple of years to this VEBA account on a personal level. And this particular proposal for you is the result of negotiations with the Sheriff's Association Union, where they will allow them to access their individual accounts, money is already in place to use for medical expenses while they are in Thurston County employment. That's a little bit of difference. So this is not a cost to the county. The contribution is already put in place, and this is just a way to, I guess, help the sheriff deputies to get into their account and use for medical expenses while employed in Thurston County.
Questions?
My questions were answered last week, so good there. Let's go to 3B. Clerk's office, resolution extending end date for position.
Yeah, you also reviewed this item, Commissioners, and this request is to extend the Clerk's Judicial Information Specialist to December 31st, 2021. This particular position, which is has an end date of June 30, 2021, has provided functions to the clerk's office that deemed to be essential to continue with those activities, and they request for you to consider extending that position until the end of this year. They have enough salary savings on their budget, and they're not requesting to additional funding for 2021. And again, this position ends at June 30th, 2021. They request to extend it for 6 months.
Questions, Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
No, sir.
No, me neither. Good. And then C, any questions on the voucher list? No.
No, sir.
Okay, that brings us to item 4A, Voluntary Stewardship Program Contract Renewal.
This is for your consideration, a contract renewal between Thurston County and the Washington State Conservation Commission. And this is related to support the activities of the Voluntary Stewardship Program. And The VSP, as we know it, obviously there is not an organization. They can have a contract requirements with the state, so the county serves as a bridge to receive money through the Washington Conservation Commission. This particular contract goes from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2023 is a 2-year basis. It has a maximum of $235,000, and that's the ceiling. It's not like we're going to be receiving all that money. That's the ceiling of this contract. And depending on the number of rents that we might receive, and that probably allows to give us enough latitude to receive those rents. There is not really an impact to the general fund other than staff's time supporting the VSP. Chris Chapeau is here if you have additional questions related to this item.
No, sir.
No, sir. Nope, good. Let's go to 4B, Interagency Agreement between Washington State University Extension and Thurston County.
You also reviewed this item, and this is the annual agreement between the Washington State University Extension and Thurston County, and this is for 2021 for the amount of $166,306. As you know, the Washington State University Extension provides key services to our citizens in many different areas associated with 4-H, master gardeners. They have a lot of activities that provide great resources to our citizens. This in close coordination with Stephen Brownwell. He is Executive Director of the WASU Extension, as well as Josh Cummings, which is the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. This is already included in the budget and is not a request for any additional budgetary adjustments. Josh is here. Do you have any questions? Additional questions?
Something for Josh?
No questions.
No, sir. Nope. Me neither. These are all items we reviewed. Oh, Josh, go ahead. What do you got?
I guess I wanted to say thank you also to the partnership with WSU Extension. Stephen Bramwell will likely be there this afternoon at 2 p.m. to say a few words, if that's all right.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Josh. Okay, we reviewed these items last week, so we're moving quickly here. Item 5A is the coroner's request for proposals for x-ray equipment.
Thank you, Commissioners. During the budget deliberations and in the fall of 2020, the board authorized and it was approved for the 2021 budget, an investment of $250,000 to secure an x-ray machine in the coroner's office. As you may know, the coroner's office paid St. Peter's Hospital $6,100 in 2019 to process 23 deceased individuals to do the x-rays. Also $6,400 in 2020, which included 24 deceased individuals. And what also includes is the transfer from the coroner's office to the St. Peter's Hospital to create another burden. I believe that, and also the coroner supports this as a good investment. In the long term, is going to be a return to that investment by having this x-ray machine located in the coroner's office, eliminating the expenses to St. Peter's Hospital as well as the transfer of those deceased individuals. In the long term, this may be an opportunity for other jurisdictions to look for x-ray services so we can generate some revenue. I know that Gary's not here, but I'll be more than happy to answer any questions if I could.
I see a square up there.
There's
But in any
Do you
case,
have any
are there
questions?
questions for the coroner? No, we've run.
No, my questions got answered.
Okay, we're good. Then let's go on. Item 6, Public Health and Social Services, DSHS Work First, Children with Special Needs Program Agreement.
You also reviewed this agreement, this proposal last week. This is an amendment to our existing contract for Thurston County and the Department of Health and Services related to the county workforce children for special needs. This particular program determines parents' ability to participate in the Works First program through an evaluation of a child's special needs. Children in special needs are children between the ages 8 and 18 and up to 21 if they enroll in the Special Education Division's development and the Division of Developmental Disabilities. Having a medical, developmental, mental health, and behavioral issues also requires specialized care. This agreement is from the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 2023, and it will be a maximum consideration of $48,150. And again, this is money coming into the county from the state. Gretchen Thaler is here to answer any questions.
Okay, questions for Gretchen?
No questions.
No. All right. This is about as smooth as a ceilings we've had. Thank you, Gretchen. Let's go to item 6B, contract with City of Lacey for Hicks Lake water quality monitoring.
This is also you review this item. It is a continuation, renewal of the contract with the City of Lacey, where environmental health, as part of the Public Health and Social Services Department, provides water quality testing on Hicks Lake. Hicks Lake is located within the city boundaries, and in this particular contract goes from May 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2023. It has a maximum consideration of $11,553. And again, this is money the City of Lacey contributes for the services that we provide to water testing at Hicks Lake. Our story is here, if you have any additional questions or comments.
No, we went over this before too. So no question.
Good, Art, thank you. Yep. Let's go to item 7A, contract award for Gate Road Culvert Replacements Project, 63015.
Yeah, Commissioners, this is an item that you were considering last week. I suggested perhaps you delayed that. So this item is for your consideration today. I need to change the action to actually fix the
Accused of an extra comma.
Yeah, extra comma. So we'll fix that for this afternoon. So as a matter of perspective, I'll circle back on the item. On June 10th, 2021, a total of 4 bids were received to construct the Gate Road Culvert replacement projects. Bids were received in response to the advertisement in the Olympian as well as the Daily Journal of Commerce. The low bidder was Quick Brothers from Aberdeen, Washington, and the low bid was $1,236,149. This particular project is expected to replace 3 fish-buried culverts, which includes the Baker Creek crossing. Will replace 2 30-inch culverts with a 28-foot prefabricated bridge, and also will replace the Maima Creek tributary crossing, replacing the 1 18-inch culvert with an 8-foot precast concrete culvert. So the cost of this item, of this project, is just about $1.2 million, and the department is for you to consider awarding the contract for Quick Brothers, with an additional 10% contingency to cover unexpected items. This project is funded by the Real Estate Excise Tax 2, as well as a grant from the Fish Passage Enhancement Program. This item is here, and I have later on your agenda conversation related to some of comments that you received from nearby citizens related to the proposed guardrail installation as a result of this culvert replacement. So this is the item for you. We'll probably ask the board to either you want to have that conversation right now or just wait until later in your agenda. We can get into more detail related to the guardrails.
I'm kind of interested in that additional conversation, but
Now or
I don't,
later?
well, I guess let me ask, is there somebody in the audience that's interested in this? I'd like to know that. Okay, well, if that's the case, I'd like to not delay them any longer than they have to be, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But I thought that the projects that related to the guardrail were culverts. I didn't realize that it was you said this is one of them is a bridge replacement.
Well, we're replacing the culverts with a bridge.
I guess I missed that that little chunk of it. Okay, well, if they're connected, then let's just jump to that so we can,
Yeah.
we've got citizens in the audience that
So
are
you
interested here.
You received some feedback from a couple of citizens related to the guardrail installation. So let me start from the beginning on this conversation, if I may. So the replacement of the existing culverts. The existing culvert is pretty much at grade. So the existing road conditions are pretty flat. And we're planning to replace those culverts, as I explained, with prefabricated bridge and a box culvert, which requires to maintain the elevation of the creek at the current condition. We cannot adjust the elevation of the creek. As a result, we need to raise the road to just about 5 feet from the existing elevation. And as a result of that, we need to transition from the 5 feet elevation crossing the new bridges, transition back onto the existing roadway. As we know, so we provide a gentle transition from the existing versus the proposed grades. And that is what creates the need of guardrails. Under normal circumstances, a guardrail is required to be installed when we have a slope, an embankment of steeper than 4 to 1%, 4 to 1. What 4 to 1 means is for every foot on grade elevation, you need to go up 4 feet. And
To the side.
So on a 4 to 1 slope is what we consider to be a recoverable slope. Meaning when a vehicle veers off the roadway, if you have a 4 to 1 slope, that on the industry standard allows to not having a guardrail because a vehicle can recover and go back to the roadway without having the risk of rolling over. In this particular case, going to the 4 to 1 slopes, it will be affecting not just additional property owners, but also will be affecting the wetlands. So when we open the habitat for by limited and fish barrier culverts, it wouldn't be prudent for us to go ahead and just have a 4 to 1 slopes that we're going to be affecting the wetlands, which is the habitat that we need to open to the fish to begin with. So that's how the 2 to 1 slopes were put in place. So the requirement now is that when we have a 2 to 1 slopes, we have to protect the traveling public by installing guardrails. In the installation of guardrails, we follow the standards, not just the state, but also the federal guidelines. And that's what I come to the conclusion that I understand the perspective of the citizens related to the guardrail, perhaps from the visual point of view, but the county has an obligation to protect the traveling public. And we go through the technical analysis as to where we need guardrails. And I personally review the details of this design. And I concur with the determination of the amount of guardrails that is needed on this particular road.
You might want to talk about your background a little bit.
Oh, yeah, my background.
I mean, just briefly.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a professional engineer. I used to be the public works director. So this used to be my bread and butter for 25 years. So, thank you. So and I understand the perspectives, and also I understand the difficult position the board is going to be put in here. Because I'm just going to be just straight to the point. Because if we make decisions in terms of visual elements of guardrails when it's not or what it isn't, then the county will be put at risk in the event that an accident will occur, because we have not implemented all the measures that we have to protect the traveling public. So when the Board of County Commissioners gets involved in determining the length of a guardrail, you really don't have any background, or you really, with all due respect, you really don't have any information behind to determine that in this particular location, as opposed to, and just gonna use a number, that, if the engineers, determine that we need, speaking purposes, 100 feet of guardrail, what will be the tools and what will be the information that you will determine? No, we only need 50. It's just, it just doesn't equate on that perspective. So, and one of the first things that I believe that I've been in public service for now 30 years, I'm getting to 30 years. That is probably one of the most difficult positions that elected officials can be put on, is to make technical decisions with anything as a background that will support those decisions. That is why you have the professionals and the engineers that will determine the length of guardrail, as well as all the elements and the design related to this particular bridge. And I understand that early in the year, during the conversations with the property owners, we stated on a construction agreement that we're going to be installing 75 feet of guardrail. You know, I have to tell you that doesn't even meet the minimum transitions for those guardrails. So I really like to apologize for the misinformation that was provided to you early in the year, because that doesn't meet not a single element of the requirements that we have in place. So I personally have to express my apologies for providing you with the wrong information at the beginning of the year. But moving forward, also when we have the opportunity to get the topographic data and determine really the impacts on the environment as well as the elevation of the roadway, this is the best possible and the minimum guardrail that we need to protect, again, the traveling public. I'm planning to formally respond to the citizens, and I have drafted a letter. I believe there's a copy in your packet. And I will be signing those letters this afternoon, just to make sure that I will, the detail of the decision-making process as to how we concluded on the guardrail length. Questions?
Commissioner Mejia?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So my first question is, you mentioned that, you know, we were following federal guidelines on the guardrail. So does it specifically say how much guardrail there's supposed to be? And my second part of that question is, what happens if we don't follow those guidelines?
So let me give you you give me to my engineering nerdy response. So the standard doesn't tell you that in a specific location you need so much guardrail. It's based on the embankment, on the 2-to-1 slope, for how long that embankment is that you need to protect that. And also you need to assess the conditions of the road, the side distance that is coming onto the bridges they're going to be replacing, as well as the speed on the roadway that we need to consider. And we have already determined that the operational speed of this road is a very narrow 2-lane roadway with no shoulders. The operational speed is 50 miles an hour. So think about 50-mile-an-hour vehicle traveling when we change the grade, when we have an embankment of on the highest point of 5 feet. That is how we determine the length of the guardrail. But also, you know, what's happened, I don't know if you observe the guardrails. This is just, you know, when you have a guardrail, there's transitions, right? Transitions at the beginning and transitions at the end. And what it does is at the end, the transition bends over to prevent becoming an obstruction of the guardrail itself. So bends out and also comes down. So that's why you see the transition. So even the 75 feet that we provided to the citizens, you know, doesn't even cover the transitions that we need on this particular project. So there is not that you can probably say that in this particular location you need so many feet of guardrails, many different elements. They plays a role in determining the length of the guardrail.
Okay.
So second question, if we don't follow the state and federal guidelines, then we will be at risk. And because we, with no technical information, we made the decision not to put a guardrail where it's needed. At the time that the vehicle gets into an accident related to this, the county will be at risk and liable. And that is why we make sure that we put all the safety elements in place to avoid that.
Anything else?
Yes.
Yep, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, no, take your time.
Taking notes
Yep,
for
absolutely.
my purpose. So you mentioned the speed is 50 miles per hour there. Could there be a reduction of speed?
Is the travel speed, the reduction of the speed really is not gonna change the need of a guardrail, because again, the need of the guardrail is based on the slope and the change in elevation. So the traveling speeds plays a role on the grade and the transition of the roadway, which all that is, related.
Thank you.
Commissioner Evans?
When it comes to risk, the speed limit, does that matter? You said there's some dispute maybe about what the speed limit is
No,
in
it's
that
that the
area?
operational speed is 50 miles an hour. That's what we determine.
Okay, and if it was less, if it was a 35 zone in that particular area, would that lessen your risk?
Not necessarily.
Oh. Okay. We elevated
Just
5 more feet than what we were, or a total of 5 feet?
the highest point is 5 feet.
Okay, so we might have been at 3 feet before or something. You're gonna raise the roadway a couple of feet.
No, we raised the road 5 feet from the existing.
From the existing position where the road, okay, so it's 5 feet higher. I guess just for clarification, I think it's more than a couple of citizens. I know this is an older petition, but I assume the same folks are concerned about this activity. What would happen, or what would it take? You talked about a 4-to-1 is not recoverable to get back on the roadway, but a 5-to-1 is recoverable?
I said the 4-to-1, it is recoverable. A
It is
4-to-1
recoverable?
it is
Okay, so what are we going to be now? What I'm wondering about, what would it take to widen the right-of-way to expand the shoulder a little bit more to change that slope?
So I
Now, you mentioned wetlands.
Yeah, I attached to you this.
Yep,
I'd
got
like
it,
you to
got
look at this, and I'm not expecting you to,
Understand it? No.
to fully see the lines, but what I'd like to point out to you is the total slope, right, and the wetlands that we have outlined in there. So let's play this out for a second.
Okay,
Right. We go and ask the staff to go 4-to-1 slopes, right? First of all, we have to declare this project and the bidding on hold, because we will not be able to redesign this project in a timely manner.
okay.
So it has to be for next year. The second element will be affecting the wetlands. Then we have to find another way to, for wetland mitigation site. And most likely we'll need additional property from the nearby property owners, which they will get into an actual right-of-way negotiation, which will increase the cost. So to answer your question, anything can be done if we have the time and money.
But I just want to clarify on that point, because the 4-to-1 was, when I first heard it, I didn't really understand it, and I think now I do. The 4 feet is the feet sideways in order to mitigate for 1 feet higher. If we're raising 5 feet, we would need 20 feet sideways. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And I thought I understood from the drawings and conversations that there would be, if the board said that's what we want, period, then that 20 feet would encroach on wetland,
Yep.
which would affect the whole habitat. That's the whole point of the
But
fish
that's the
and
whole
Culvert
point,
project.
I mean, is to access the habitat.
On top of the legal, financial, contractual,
And this project will be delayed for 2 years just to go through that process.
so I gotta make sure that we all understand that. It's 20, we're raising this road quite a bit, which means we'd have to go quite a bit out to order to avoid this
And
improper ratio of.
And it's not uncommon to strike that balance. And that's really what we see as the balance. As the balance the designers go through and again, to protect the traveling public and minimize impacts to the environment and minimize impacts to property owners.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
We're also working with a window of opportunity here for the fish replacement project, right? We can only do it in certain periods of time.
Is the fish window, so that is why I have this item for your consideration this afternoon.
And what Ty mentioned as far as the 20 feet, we'd have to go, 30 feet or something? I don't know. I mean, it's probably a ratio that goes out there quite a ways. I mean, it isn't gonna be 1 foot or 2 feet. Is that right?
Well, it's gonna be twice as much as we currently have in general terms. And I know the engineer, Ryan Blazer is here to chopping up the bits to say something.
Does Ryan, would he like to comment on this? I'd kind of like to hear what a road engineer's got to say.
Brian, could you not only answer Commissioner Edwards' question, but maybe just touch on, because I think it's something I heard in my meetings with the neighbors about this initial estimate and how did that happen? I mean, how could that have happened? Was it a Scrivener's error or somebody just has a different idea? Because that gave me, when I was first confronted with this, I thought, well, there must be quite a bit of subjectivity here. There must be quite a bit of latitude if one previous engineer for Thurston County said X and you're saying Y, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but was he just dead wrong? Did he miss a zero on the form? I mean, not only did it confuse the citizens, but it confused me as a commissioner to figure out, well, how much latitude is there here? Within a window of acceptable decisions or choices that we can make. So could you kind of expand on that for all of our benefit?
Commissioner Menzer, this is Teresa Parsons. I'm sorry for interrupting, but perhaps I could take that one. Ryan picked up the project after another engineer left, and he was the primary lead on this project. So it's a little difficult to understand why the misinformation was communicated that way. I can only assume that he was really trying to work with the property owners, but he just made an error in judgment. Some of the preliminary drawings they had in front of him were not thoroughly reviewed, and so that's been problematic, and I'm very, very apologetic for that miscommunication and the assumptions that the property owners were left with. But in picking up and doing the thorough review that we really needed to do, Ryan found that the guardrail preliminary layout was insufficient. So I'm not sure exactly what happened, but.
Commissioner Edwards, ball's still in your court. Did you have a question for Teresa?
Well, no, you articulated my question pretty good. That was good to hear. But is there going to be guardrail on both sides of the road on this issue? Both sides. And
Yes.
I haven't heard. Okay, so 75 feet. You're thinking that was not a responsible estimate to start with, but what is the finished product going to look like?
Just think about the transitions alone, just the transitions, because as I explained, the core guardrail in the middle is to protect the highest point of the slope, right? Then there is a transition, they attaches to the bridge, leading to the bridge, and there's a transition coming out onto the roadway. Those two transitions equates to 70 feet. Right off the bat. So as Teresa stated, I believe there is an opportunity for the county here as well to the department as to how we deliver information to the citizens, because I don't have an explanation other than that extend my apologies for providing misinformation at the beginning of this process.
So how many feet are we talking about total?
I
I guess,
calculated, but it's
I don't want to add them all up, but on each side of the road.
Yeah, it varies from side to side. Do you have that number?
Ryan probably can answer that.
Yeah, if you give me just a second, I can get you a number.
That's right.
And then my follow-up question would be, how high do these guardrails have to be? Are they all always the same? Are they ever painted, I don't know, green versus silver? I think you're doing something about anodized or something like that. I'm just wondering. I don't know any of that.
When we install guardrails, it's the standard. It's standard in terms of the height and the standards in terms of the length, as just explained. We tend not to treat the guardrails other than with different color. We do put some reflective elements on the transitions just to give the public enough advance warning, as well as we put signs leading to the guardrail when a bridge is approaches. So we, in addition to not just installing the guardrails, we provide all the necessary signing to complement the safety requirements.
Being this was brought up by the citizens that are concerned, when you ramp that guardrail off, do you kind of take it out and away from the road so you can capture any drunks coming by it so they don't hit it head on?
You want me to go to the whiteboard?
Absolutely. Is that the way you do it?
That's the transition. So, because if you see the guardrail installed, and I was explaining the transition exactly does that at the end, leading approaching the roadway. The guardrail bends out.
I guess I'll ask you this, you're the engineer. Is there a solution to this that would help solve the problem at hand? And I don't know, maybe our engineer wants to, maybe he came up with some numbers here too.
So
Yeah.
could I also just for Ryan to follow up on that the county manager was talking about, and Commissioner Edwards, that you brought up, the patina, paint, and height, and the other questions. Go ahead, Ryan.
So in response to the numbers, commissioners, and I can follow up with exact numbers, but it looks like at one of the sites, site 1 at the Baker Creek, which is being replaced by a bridge, we're about 340 feet of guardrail total. So that's both sides of the road. And so if you think about, both sides of the road, but then also both sides of the stream crossing, kind of 4 quadrants there, total 340 feet. And some quadrants of that crossing have different lengths depending on the side slopes from the edge of pavement, as the county manager was describing before on the embankment slopes. And then the other site, the Mima Creek tributary crossing, looks like we're at about 460 feet of guardrail total. One of the sides has significantly more than the other, and that's due to the height of the embankment. So as the county manager explained previously, as the 4-to-1, as that slope goes down and out, we're at 2-to-1. And so for every 2 feet, for every 1 foot vertical, we go 2 feet out. So it's a much steeper slope. And in a perfect world, as you all were describing earlier, it would be about 20 at 4-to-1. 5 feet would be 20 feet wide, but it's not a perfectly flat world. And so on one side, we're essentially chasing a slope that's going downhill. And so we would need to chase it much further to get back to the existing ground. which would tear up the existing habitat that we're trying hard to preserve in our program. And so we have a very high embankment height on one side of the road at the Mima Creek tributary crossing. It's about 13 feet at its maximum height from the embankment, the edge of the embankment, up to the proposed road. So it's a steep slope and it's very high in some places, which is a significant safety hazard. And that's what requires more guardrail on one side of the road, as I believe you can see on some of those plans and exhibits that are in front of you. Does that answer all the questions? I know there were a couple questions in there.
Yeah, I mean, it covers most of what I'm referring to. So there's going to be about 700 and some feet of guardrail along here.
Yeah, 700, 800.
On one side, and then same on the other side,
No,
is that right?
no, that's a total.
That was the total both sides and both sides of the road.
Okay, so there's gonna be about 700 or 800 feet total.
But it's two culverts.
projects,
It's
two projects.
It's two
Right.
culverts, right?
Correct.
So think about in terms of, if this is the culvert, is four sides approaching that culvert. And one culvert replacement is 300 and some.
340 and the other's
On
440.
4 quadrants.
Okay.
And the other one was 400 plus on 4 quadrants. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So it's not like you could have a 400 feet on
I'm trying
one
to
side.
figure out how they come up with the difference of 75 feet versus 800 feet.
Trying to figure that out myself.
You know,
I'm trying to figure that out.
I wish I could have an answer for that. Other than the county made an error.
Okay, anything
The
about
county
that?
made an error.
Okay,
And
it's always
we
good.
communicated to the citizens that error. And for that, I apologize. I don't know how, I cannot explain that. I'm sorry.
So I guess we don't have a fix possible, is that what I'm hearing, that'll meet the concerns of the group?
Because this is
Because of the liability.
This is a
of-
technical decision, Commissioners. This is an absolutely technical decision.
I will.
Go ahead.
Apologize. I will say when the error came to light, when we noticed the discrepancy in the preliminary estimate, the preliminary lengths of guardrail versus what was then determined to be what might be required, we didn't take that lightly. We took our time. We consulted each other. We consulted different teams and different engineers, and came to the conclusion of where we're at. And so, because of what was communicated, we understood the gravity and the difficulty of that being an error to communicate that originally to the property owners, and we unfortunately, we're here and we had to address that and fix our mistake while addressing the safety of the traveling public, and we are unfortunately where we are, but we're confident in the design where it stands. Currently, so.
Yeah, and really the only way to enhance this for habitat, which is what we're trying to do, is to do it the way it's laid out, and the only alternative would be don't enhance the habitat. Is that basically about what we're up against? Because if we don't do it right, and right means somebody's gonna be unhappy, but we're gonna expose the county to a lot of liability. If we just leave it alone, the fish don't make it up the creek or whatever, so kind of a no-win situation for fish.
And I understand, Commissioners, from your point of view, is a very difficult position to be at, because I do respect your position to be responsive to your citizens, to your constituents. I don't envy you that position, Commissioners, really. But also, I like for you to look the obligation that you have to protect the traveling public, and how this element of installing guardrails does that, as well as strikes the balance in terms of protecting the traveling public, eliminating impacts to the environment in which we like to open for fish habitat.
What makes this really frustrating is that this error, and that's all we talked about is the error. This error comes on top of what I understand to be a promise made by previous Board of County Commissioners, which they shouldn't have done, frankly. They don't know what the future holds. They don't know what projects are gonna come forward. They don't know what the considerations are gonna be. But that's the reality, because I take what I was told by the citizens at face value. They've documented the efforts they made back in 2013, I think it was. And now it's 8 years later, and this board is dealing with the result of that. And then you overlay that with a piece of misinformation, you know, not poorly intentioned necessarily, but you know, it compounds the problem. So,
I have a couple more questions if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Another thing that was brought up in the letter from the citizens was in regards to, you know, this is not only used by, you know, people driving cars, but also by a lot of bicycle and motorcycle traffic. And so I was wondering, is there a bike ledge, I'm not sure what's called. Shoulder in this, on the gate road?
So on the existing road, there is 0 to no shoulders. The proposed cross-section of the road, I believe, includes a 3-foot paved shoulders, correct me. So,
Correct.
So we are enhancing what is there. Ideally, we would like to have 6-foot shoulders. But again, the wider the cross-section is, the more impacts you have on the wetlands. So this road has, again, 0 to no shoulders, and the proposed cross-section provides 3-foot shoulders to accommodate what you're suggesting.
Go ahead.
No, I was wondering, you know, what would the impact be if they were to be added, not 6 foot, but maybe smaller to accommodate a bike shoulder?
In the 3 feet is what we're
3
providing.
feet.
And I will say this, sorry, Teresa, I might have cut you off. And our project is not a road project necessarily. Our project is through the Fish Passage Enhancement Program, where we, you know, enhance the fish passage and the streams and the creeks for salmon and other wildlife. So we are widening and providing that 3-foot shoulder outside of the lane at our project location. We don't extend past our limits necessarily, if that makes sense. So while we are enhancing as much as we can that aspect of the traveled way within our project, we're not going past that because it's simply to enhance the fish passage.
And that, I was going to say it in a slightly different way. This is not a corridor improvement. Currently, it's a narrow, windy 2-lane roadway with, as a county manager said, little to no shoulders. And so to provide bicycle amenities here on top of the environmental impacts would be in an isolated spot, in 2 isolated spots. Really, to provide that type of facility, you would want to do a corridor improvement. We don't have the funding, and that isn't this project.
I guess just for everybody's information on this topic, I guess, on salmon enhancement and culvert replacement in general, 3 or 4 years ago, we started this program to try and make the environment better. We even did that prior to the court ruling that said you had to do it. Now we've got a court ruling that says we have to do it. We're kind of ahead of the game. I guess this is such an unusual situation that, I mean, I've not been faced with this as a board. We normally follow certain guidelines at our work sessions and agenda setting sessions. Because this is so unique, is there any chance that before we make a decision, we could hear from body that wrote this letter, the citizens that wrote this letter, that seemed to be representative of the community down there. And maybe they've thought of something that we can do to make this all work. I know we don't usually do that. I don't know if they'd even be willing to say anything, but one thing that bugs me about government is sometimes we make decisions and we don't have all the facts, and oftentimes we find that out at a later date. So, and I defer to my seatmate, Commissioner Mentzer, because it's his district, first of all, and you are the chair. So I don't want to put you on the spot. But you did. I know I did, but I don't have a good way around it. I mean, we can't stay here all day. I'm doing a lot of business to go over.
I'm gonna defer to the will of the board. What do you think, Commissioner Mejia? You understand that would be limited, it's not a half hour to continue to debate this, but if we spend 5 minutes to hear kind of some input from, I know Mr. Sliler, he mentioned for the meeting that he would be willing to provide some perspective. So we're knee deep in this, and the time is crunch. Sometimes we can follow up with you after meetings. We don't have that opportunity here. This is on this afternoon's agenda, so with the concurrence of the board, let's have you come forward though. You've heard everything that's going on,
Yes,
so why
I
don't
have.
you just weigh right in?
All right, my name's David Seiler. I've been a resident of Gate Road since 1977. In that time, the people that drive off the road are drunk. And I'm not aware of a fatality. I well understand engineering principles. I'm a retired research scientist for the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Ironically, we installed at great expense an 11.5-foot culvert just upstream, 150 yards upstream from the county's 18-inch culvert. We're all in on salmon recovery, the environment. The real issue here isn't the visual aspect of the culverts or the guardrails. What we're most concerned about is these guardrails retaining drunks on the road. So you talk about the safety of the public that uses the road, and I know you're very automobile centric, but as one of the commissioners mentioned, she noted there are other uses besides cars. Now, if implicit in that idea is that the drunks always veer to the right. They don't, they cross the center line. And right in front of the sheriff's posse hall on I think it was May 4th, if I remember correctly. Maybe that isn't the right date, but just recently, a truck crossed the center line and almost killed a person we know. He was able to avoid the head-on collision. Had a guardrail been in place, he would be dead, no question about it. So that is our concern, and we understand about county liability. And so what we're asking is, can the length of guardrails be considered terminated? You gotta realize there's trees all along this road. You talk about vehicles being able to recover from leaving the road. You don't recover from hitting a fir tree that's this big. You're dead if you're speeding. So, and it isn't a 50-mile-an-hour road, it's 35 with cautionary speed reductions on curves. 30 feet in front of our driveway, there's curves ahead. So it is a road that people speed on. It's a road that drunks, to some degree, like all roads, travel on. And we're concerned that a drunk careening off a guardrail designed to keep the public safe directs that same vehicle into the path of oncoming traffic. And if you're walking on that road, bicycling, you cannot get away from an errant driver when, whatever the cause, when you're contained in a guardrail. I don't think anybody would feel comfortable walking inside a guardrail along the road. So all we're asking for is a minimization of the guardrails. And we've got this is the old stagecoach pathway. It was carved out by settlers. If this is the hill, it's just a little notch perched on the toe of the black hills there, just above the swamp. So it is a very narrow road. It's curvy, but it seems to me that the county's kind of guardrail crazy. If you drive down Little Rock Road from the town of Little Rock to the transfer station, there's a lot of guardrail there. And I can't see that you're really saving anyone. If a drunk goes off the road, he's gonna be okay. If he careens off that guardrail and crosses center line, he's gonna hit an oncoming vehicle. And that's our concern, not the coloration of the guardrails or anything else. That's my statement.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you have any questions, feel free.
I don't have any questions. I do for the county manager.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Mr. Rose.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
So, we're gonna replace lots of culverts. I mean, they're coming. That's just part of our program we've laid out. And we can't get away from liability issues, it doesn't sound like. I mean, no matter what we do, because what David said makes sense to me. You're saving a trunk. And so is there a way, if this project did not move forward now, first of all, what would be the penalty against the county? I mean, do we have to pay a fee to the contractor? Can we put things on the shelf and then revitalize it at a later date? Just from what I'm hearing, I mean, is it possible that we can cut farther into the hillside to give us more room for expansion? I don't know the answers to those things. It really bugs me that apparently we had an agreement, or at least the agreement was implied, and another board did something which probably they didn't know about either. So we've got some fault on both sides. If we put this on hold and go on to some of our other culvert replacement projects, and we can get to this in a couple of years from what you say, is it possible that we could cut into that hillside and alleviate this problem? And Commissioner Mejia is talking about walking and bicycling, and at the same time, we could solve a lot of problems. We might be able to solve the culvert issue, or the guardrail issue. We might be able to solve the bicycle issue, or pedestrian issue, if we wanted to wait. But if we wait, does that mean we've already awarded a contract, or we're just getting into doing that today? Is there a time element? Sounds like a couple of years might go by, but do we have to pay some kind of a penalty because we've went this far and now we say King's X, we're gonna take a time out for 2 years? That's just my question. So I don't know how my seatmates feel about that. And I'm not suggesting anything at this point. I'd just like to hear what you've got to say.
So going back to my initial statement, if time and money is not an issue.
But that very seldom is the case, but go ahead.
Yeah, anything can be done. Putting aside this project and just having studying to provide additional wide shoulders, flatter slopes, changes the scope of work of the project. It's no longer the fish barrier project. So it becomes a road project, which that, as you heard, it changes the scope of work, changes the elements of that. We have a fish barrier enhancement program grant. At this point, I don't know if we lose that opportunity with the grant because we changed the dynamics of the project itself. It's no longer a fish barrier project. It's a road project.
How much of this is a grant?
We have a total of how much we have on the grant?
On this one, we applied for a $35,000 grant. You might be thinking of the other Latigo or Latigo project where we yeah,
Okay, so
I say Latigo, but yeah, that's the other project where we had significant grants.
No here, no there, right? Yeah, but it's really is the time and effort in changing the conditions of.
Could I add one more thing as well? We've already purchased the bridge and the replacement culvert,
That's correct.
and they are specifically designed for this site.
Cross section.
How much was that?
Do you remember?
I can get back to you on official numbers.
In round numbers, it was at least 800 or 700,000. It was several $100,000.
I believe we purchased the structures for this project and the Latigo project together, and I believe total that was around 500,000. But that was multiple bridges, multiple structures. This project specifically has the one bridge and the one culvert, and I want to say it was between 100 and 200,000. And I can get you more accurate, more detailed numbers if you'd like. But those structures, those have already been purchased, and those are actually going to be delivered to us this week, actually.
So the county's already made an investment in this project, besides staff time. Other resources
That's
have already
correct.
been brought in.
Maybe,
And
okay, excuse me.
Yeah. Apologize. Okay. Thank you. Apologize for interrupting. I just want to say as well, as was mentioned before, we can always expand the footprint. Ideally we'd have 4-to-1 side slopes from the road everywhere and no guardrail. But as was noted, this is a very tight, very narrow road, sensitive habitats, and our goal as a fish passage enhancement program is fish first. It's habitat enhancement. It's minimizing that footprint as best as we can to enhance that habitat. And so that's where we came to, and we can always go out more, but that's not the goal of our program.
I have another question, a follow-up question. I know this is initially a fish passage. Can this become a road project and we do the extensions that we need to do?
That would, and going back to the bridge, and we purchased the structures. Think about in terms of, see the bridge, approaching the bridge, is coincides with the road section, meaning how wide the road is, right? So if we go through this process of, let's say we install the way it is, and then we have a road project behind it, they will enhance, put additional shoulders and extend the 4-to-1 slopes, we're going to be in the same situation to affecting the wetlands. We're going to be on the same situation, and by widening the roadway, I will be curious if we have to replace the structures that we're going to be replacing under this project, or we're going to have to transition the road itself, narrow down, it will become a pinch point.
Okay, just real quick. Why can't we do both sometimes? I mean, why can't we enhance this for bicycles, pedestrians, all that, and fish at the same time? Why does it always have to be one or the other?
And let me take you back. And when the board invested real estate excise tax, it was specifically narrow to address fish barrier obstructions in the county. And staff was very narrow on that. And as a result of being very specific of eliminating the fish barriers, we have won local, state, national, and international awards the way we approach this program. Because under normal circumstances, you're right. A road project can be extended and the cost associated with it, and we missed the opportunity to address with the finite resources the board put in place to address the key element, fish barrier obstructions.
For me, I mean, what this boils down to is kind of engineering question. I mean, I can understand why when the road's elevated, you want guardrail. Somebody flies off the road, they're gonna say, you could have saved my life if you had guardrail, because I fell asleep or whatever. What Mr. Seiler describes, I can completely understand too. If you're walking and drunk driver careens off the guardrail and goes into the other, other lane, like those, we can all acknowledge that both of those sets of things happen. I would have to believe that somebody with the millions of miles of road in this country and engineers and data and collection, that somebody has, engineering associations have looked at the data and said, it's a trade-off and this is more safe than that. I mean, I have to believe that that answer has been found, that one is considered more safe than another.
The duck situation up in Seattle, are you familiar with that? The duck broke and went over into the tour bus, across the lane. No, it only cost about $40 million or something like that.
I don't know, it's just something that, neither one's gonna be perfect and there has to be an answer. And it sounds like from the engineers in the room that I'm hearing from, it's deemed that having the guardrail is safer than not having it, even though neither one's perfectly safe in every situation. So I don't know, I'm just at a loss to sit here, kind of going back to what Ramiro said at the beginning, as a commissioner who's a criminal defense lawyer, and saying that I know better than, I have pressed, and Ramiro, at my direction, Ramiro has pressed, met with staff, the county staff with it. When Mr. Seiler mentioned minimization of the guardrail, that's what I was looking for. And I have pressed as hard as I possibly can to get some traction there, and I'm not getting it. And I don't feel like I'm in a position where I can overrule when I don't have the basis to do it. I don't know what that data says about what guardrail configuration is safer for the public. That's why we have engineers on county staff, and I don't know where I can go with this.
Commissioner, that was, sorry.
No, go ahead.
That was my objective, because I don't get involved, not anymore, to my demise, in technical decisions in public works, But considering your concern that you had and considering the feedback that you received from your constituents, I believe that I needed to do a due diligence. And I did. I met with the staff at Public Works. I went through all the technical elements of this project and how the requirements of the guardrail came to be on the proposed plans. And I have to tell you, from my professional point of view, I agree with those decisions. That's the minimum length of guardrails that we can put on this particular condition. I wish that I can, for me, it would have been a win. Say, hey, Commissioner, I find you an opportunity to reduce the guardrails. They couldn't.
How many feet of guardrail are there right now? Just there's something there now, but because we're raising the road, that's the deciding factor. I guess from Ryan's point of view, just real quick, Ryan, is it possible that you could cut farther back into this hill at a future date if we put this on hold, and you could utilize the bridge component that you bought? Okay, you're gonna move back you're gonna purchase some property or whatever it takes and move the roadway 40 feet back into the hill. Is that possible?
Yeah, always possible to acquire more right of way and extend the footprint. However, we with the property negotiations that we engaged at unfortunately fell apart with the extension of additional guardrail. We were originally going to acquire some right of way, and with this error, understandably and unfortunately, that negotiation fell apart with the way things unfolded. So it's always possible to expand the footprint. As just a direct answer to your question, yes.
Okay, therein lies the problem of trust. I've always done things with a handshake, not saying that you don't do legal contracts and whatnot. I've always tried to stand up for that handshake, but I didn't make this deal. So if it was possible to use this bridge and redo it, I mean, I know if I told somebody I was gonna sell them a car for X dollars and then I found out later, well, so-and-so would give me X plus more, I'm gonna sell it for X to the first person that I committed to, just because that's the way I do business. So in this case, I am willing to postpone it if we could redo it and do it right, even though it might not be the best thing completely, but I think trust is worth developing and following. So that's kind of where I'm at on this mess. But Ryan, if you said we could never use those bridges again and they're gonna lay in the boneyard and we're gonna have to cut them into 27 pieces and scrap them out, then I probably gotta go the other way. My goodwill only goes so far, I guess, so.
And I
have
will say, oh,
Sorry.
Teresa,
sorry.
The structures were designed and ordered based upon this design that we have. And I'm not saying that we could never use those structures again, but it dramatically increases the cost and time, and we may not be able to use them until we go through a redesign. We wouldn't know for sure whether these would fit the new configuration or not. Ryan, maybe you can add to that.
yeah, and also I will say, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the structures will still need guardrail at these structures per the current guidelines and recommendations. You cannot remove that completely from the project. Just due to the nature of these structures, they require guardrail at the structures, and then specific lengths from those structures per the WashDOT standards and per the standard lengths of items. So while we might be able to reduce, I don't believe that it would be worth the cost or time to delay for a few hundred feet of guardrail, and that's my professional opinion on that, because we can't eliminate guardrail completely from the project.
that's a pretty good piece of common sense, right?
All right, we need to move forward.
I just one more.
Yeah.
The board do have an option to do nothing. Just want to make sure they give you that option to you. It's just put this project aside, and do nothing is also an option the board has.
But that doesn't sound like it solves anything, right? For a long period.
But it's an option the board has.
So we need concurrence from the board on keeping this item on this afternoon's agenda.
Okay, can I say something?
I know you didn't want to be first on that.
You didn't want to be first, I don't blame you, sir. I tell you what I'm gonna do, this is a dirty trick, but I'm actually gonna put you on the spot, sir. And I'm gonna just say, this is your district, even though we all try to serve the whole county. And I'm kind of gonna follow your lead. You probably know more than I do about this. You've met with the citizens. You've got a good understanding of what's going on, and you have got a tough decision on your hands. And the county manager has said that.
I didn't mean to laugh. That's the second time in 20 minutes I put you on the spot.
I know, but I'm sympathetic with the situation. I really am. And if you say let's shelf it, I'm gonna say let's shelf it. And if you say let's go for it, I'm with you.
Yeah, it's absolutely difficult position that you're at.
Yeah, it's a killer.
So
I don't like it.
I don't disagree with that.
But Ryan, probably in that last 1 minute.
So I have provided you my technical perspective.
Yeah.
I have provided my technical suggestion, and I have provided you all the elements I believe that you need to make a decision.
I mean, I don't feel that a delay in this project is gonna get us to a better result. You know, either we're gonna lose the ability to use the bridge, it's not gonna be feasible to, when you talk about cutting into the hillside, I don't even know exactly how, there's two sides to this road, and there's still gonna be a substantial guardrail involved, as Ryan pointed out. I don't know the answer to whether putting guardrail in versus not is best practice. I have to rely on the engineering expertise that the county has hired and employed to give us these decisions, and I really apologize to the citizens who have been I think shouldn't have been given a promise by a previous board, shouldn't have been given bad information at the beginning of this, outset of this project, which I think is making this a bitter pill. But I just don't see that, I don't see that a delay is gonna benefit anyone in the long run. We've invested in this project. It's a good project regarding fish habitat. And I have to defer to the expertise on the safety component. I don't know the answers to those questions. And I think this board has asked as many questions as we possibly could of staff. We've set up site visit with the citizens. I've met with them. We've addressed them here in a way that we don't typically. But I'm going to support moving this project forward. So.
And I have to say, I want to echo, I respect that position that you're taking on this. I really do. I think it's a tough decision.
I'll support it too.
So I will send those letters to be responsive to their initial letters with additional detail.
We have additional folks who are interested in this.
We have a lot more interesting things to talk about today. I just want to make sure that we didn't use up all your time.
County's perspective to provide you with the erroneous information.
May I say one thing? You came to the right conclusion. We don't really want a massive, speaking for the citizens I know now, a massive road improvement. We do want guardrails minimized. We do want the fish passage improvements. So messy as it was, and everybody's apologized more than enough. We don't need any more apologies. We understand a mistake was made. That's little. It didn't really change anything. I understand all this. So you've come to the right conclusion. We did want to minimize guardrails as much as possible. That's in the end really what we're asking for. And if 800 feet is the number, as Ryan added it up, that's less than the 1,150 or whatever, 44 that we had on the last set of plans that we added up. So I think we're there. It's not perfect, but we've got, for whatever it's worth, the blessing of the citizens to go forward.
At least these two citizens.
These two citizens.
We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming this morning. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you to the board for considering that carefully. All right. And thank you to staff. Appreciate you speaking, what you believe the truth and what's the safest thing for the citizens. And, there's tough decisions in our jobs. So appreciate your input.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, that brings us to 7B, setting a public hearing for compression brake restrictions.
You had a briefing on this matter, Commissioners, and this is a follow-up to that briefing where you will be setting a public hearing for July 20, 2021, where you will be receiving public testimony for amending the existing code to include portions of the roadways where it will not be allowing compression brakes. And those portions of the road will be Churchill Road, southeast between 1400 South of SR 07 and dead end, to the dead end. And also portions of Little Rock that will be between Albany Road southwest and Sargent Road southwest.
Questions on this?
Yeah, just real quick. Is this something initiated by a group of citizens?
Yes.
Okay. I guess we're gonna hear more about it then.
Matt, is Matt up there? I can't read the names. Becky, I'm sorry, Becky, is there anything that we need to know that we didn't cover last week? Maybe
No, I believe everything got covered last week, Commissioners.
Okay. Commissioner Mejia?
No, I think we asked a lot about this last week.
Yeah, okay. Well, hopefully we'll have a good public hearing on the issue and hear some more. Okay, it'll be the standing items to report from the commissioners. I had a super busy week. I assume everybody's getting out and about all of a sudden, so that'll be good. And then we'll have 2 public hearings at 3 p.m. We'll take them in order. A, will be regarding budget amendment. County Manager.
Yes, Commissioners, you will be receiving public testimony related to the budget amendments number 1 for the 2021 budget cycle. Robin Campbell is going to walk you through the details of that, and also she's going to be introducing a couple of additional changes for your consideration as we move along. Something just materialized after you made the final decisions, nothing significant in my opinion. And also the second public hearing related to the budget, as well as where you will be receiving public testimony related to the capital improvement program minor amendment. And that will mainly relate to adding the 3000 Pacific project as well as the Montana. There has been a lot of communication related to that. And also, as I stated earlier today, in order to address the concerns from Mr. Pettit related to this particular process, I will not be able to address this afternoon during my manager's report, because his particular questions were addressed in front of the board in an executive session. However, staff Jennifer Davis is going to walk you through the process at a high level as part of the staff's presentation before you receive public testimony.
Now, is there an opportunity for the board to take action at the end on
No,
these two items?
thank you. No, the only action that we asked the board for consider today, you can do whatever you is to close the public hearing. We have a schedule of Thursday morning, 1 hour to follow up based on the public testimony you might receive. And when we review the agenda for the 29th, we have those items for final consideration. And that's how. So we will not be asking you to take a final action this afternoon.
There was some written information provided from, I don't know if this was Evan Parker, Kidder Matthews.
Yes, that was part of the public public testimony. There's
This is like written public
written
input?
testimony, so I just provided you with, because it's very thick, that report, and I just give you.
Yeah, it was just handed to me. I didn't know from what quarter, through what stream it was.
I received an email from Evan Parker, and that outlines the public hearing, so this is as part of the public testimony. Considering there's a very detailed report, I believe that's what you're looking at.
It starts with an email and then kind of a market
Yep.
report.
Yep.
And then there's a kind of a little outline. It looks like it's responsive to a lot of the public
Yeah,
comments
so
we're getting. That was
because
produced by Mr. Parker?
Yep.
Okay, because it was
Yes,
a lot of really good information. I wanted to make sure I understood the source of it.
And
Did we all get that?
Each one of you has that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was yesterday, so it might be
Is
in your
inbox.
office.
Yeah, okay.
Is your inbox.
Okay,
I have a question.
yeah.
I keep hearing about minor amendment, and I've looked for minor amendment. I can't find where anything defines minor amendment. And so I'm just wondering if you can explain that to me. I asked Robin about minor amendment one time before. I find it hard to believe something would be called a minor amendment when we're talking about multiple millions of dollars. So could we get that explanation today at the public hearing or something, what a minor amendment actually is and where you find it in the statute?
Well, absolutely, I don't know, I believe Jennifer Davis.
She's there.
Yeah, she's here. Addressed that question a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, but I don't think I ever heard
Yeah, so-
where it's located, or maybe I didn't do the follow-up question about where it's located.
I'm happy to provide a little clarification now and can repeat that during my comments ahead of the public hearing this afternoon. Jennifer Davis, Community Planning Manager. There is no definition for minor amendment. That is not a formal moniker. That is simply what we name this to distinguish this proposed addition of just 2 capital facilities to the CIP from the major repeal and replace update we do to the CIP annually in the fall. So this is just 2 facilities being considered for adding, as opposed to the dozens and dozens of facilities and multiple millions of dollars that are in the fiscal tables during the major update in the fall. That's the only thing. There's no formal anything attached to that minor amendment. It's just a descriptor used for this project.
Okay, I guess I want to raise this issue then, because I think that the terminology used, words matter. And I could not imagine how a government entity could claim, I don't know, at one point this was gonna be $30 million or something, and claim that's a minor amendment. Because when the public looks at things and they see minor amendment, oh, okay, no big deal.
How about we take that word out?
Well, anything is better than leaving it in there. And the reason I say that is because it's misleading to the public. And I was just looking through because I never got this answer when I asked a couple weeks ago about it. I just thought, well, it's all part of the process. It's laid out in RCW 1234.
Yeah.
But come to find out, I couldn't find it anywhere in there. So I don't know what to term it as, but that bothers me that captured so much of the comment that led up to this. Oh, we're just talking about a minor amendment here. Heck, if I was somebody out there that didn't understand what was going on, I'd be thinking, well, that's no big deal, minor.
I see what you're saying. Any objection to removing the word minor?
May I?
Yeah.
Suggest for you to just go through the public hearing, and maybe this conversation will be good on Thursday morning, because you're not taking an action today.
Okay, it's clarified now to me, and that's my concern, that we've been rolling along.
That makes
here.
sense, Jennifer?
Yeah, we won't have to use that terminology in the final action of the adopting resolution, which is where that will be, formalized.
Tuesday will be amending.
Mhm.
If the minor, but changing at this point the title, I don't think it will be prudent. Just go through the public hearing, receive public testimony, then you will be having a conversation on Thursday morning on the public testimony that you receive, and then we'll give you opportunity to have those discussions.
So Jennifer, just put an emphasis in this afternoon on the point that minor refers to the number of projects versus the suggestion that it's not, that those two projects aren't important or aren't, or there isn't a significant amount of money involved, or anything like that.
Yep, already in my notes. Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, that's fair enough. Then let's close out then today's Board of County Commissioners agenda. Move to consideration of next week's agenda, which is June 29th. Oh, wow. Time flies when you're talking about guardrails. Sorry. We will break. We'll be back at 11 to pick up the next agenda.
Oh, boy.
Okay, we're back on the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021. It is 11:01 a.m. and we're picking up with item 4 on today's agenda, which is a review of next Tuesday's board meeting agenda, where we will call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Mejia. Consideration of the agenda and board meeting minutes from today. Opportunity for public to address the board. County manager's update.
I will follow up with any public testimony you might receive today.
Consent agenda, 4 items. Item 3A, emergency services, resolutions for the updated comprehensive emergency management plan.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. You received a briefing on May 26, 2021 from Clerk Harding, Emergency Services Director. Well, he outlined the need to update the current Thurston County Comprehensive Emergency Plan. The last plan the board approved was in 2015, and this is about time for us to go ahead and update the plan. You concur on that particular approach, and this is the item in which you take an action to consider taking an action to approve a resolution to adopt the plan, and also delegate Curt Harding to have the letter of promulgation and submit it to the state. Sandy Ecker from Emergency Services here to answer any questions.
Commissioner Mejia, or anything?
No, sir.
No? Thank you, Sandy. We're good to go. 3B, Human Resources Collective Bargaining Agreement with the Local 618 Court Security.
This has been a long time coming, Commissioners. This is finally we reach an agreement with the Court Security, that's Local 618 here, and this is a group they just formed to become a union. So this is the first contract they actually we have with this group, Court Security. And again, this has been a long time coming, and this particular agreement with this union will be from July 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2022. And that is when all the other bargaining agreements will coincide, so.
It's a 1 year?
It's just 1 year. A little over a year.
Year and a half, what is it? Is it a year and a half? I didn't get those dates again.
It's from July 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2022.
About 18 months.
18 months, a year and a half. And that's just to align with the other contracts when we start negotiating the other ones.
Is Maria up there?
I don't see HR here, but
Any questions from the board?
if you have any questions, I can probably.
I guess I'm curious what it all is gonna entail, at least in a Reader's Digest.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Because it's new.
We tend not to divulge the terms of the agreement. I can probably give you a copy of the agreement before next week.
Yeah, just offline. We don't have to take it up in this meeting.
Right. I'll do that.
Works.
All right. Well, so make a note to ask questions that you may have on that item, and we'll assume that it'll stay on the consent agenda next week. 3C is the Sheriff's Office, Lake Lawrence Regatta application.
This is a yearly event at Lake Lawrence, where the Sheriff's Office is requesting for you to approve an application with the Seattle Outdoor Association to have an event, a race event, boat event at Lake Lawrence that will be from September 17, 2021 through September 19, 2021. And the Sheriff's Office coordinates this effort, checks all the boxes, and this is for your consideration.
And I might mention,
for this.
it's been going on for about 50 years
Yeah.
or more. So it's a long standing, I think, between Lawrence Lake and Black Lake both. So, just, you know.
No questions?
All right.
No.
Good on that. Auditor, financial services voucher list. Commissioners can review that this week. Bring questions back next Tuesday morning. Item 4A is resolution for 2021 revised indirect cost allocation plan. We have a briefing coming up on this.
Yes,
correct?
Commissioners, and in fact, you have a series of briefings tomorrow related to this. So this is an item in advance of the briefing that you will receive tomorrow, because everything is timed related to the budget calendar. So at some point, the board needs to take an action in establishing the indirect cost for the 2021, which is going to be building the 2022, 2023, the 2022 budget. Robin can further elaborate on this. I don't know if you want to give a preview of tomorrow's briefings or not.
So we are having briefings tomorrow and Thursday regarding internal service rates, but this particular item is connected to the budget amendment and the changes to the indirect plan that are reflected in the budget amendment. So that needs your approval now. The items that you'll be reviewing in work sessions tomorrow and Thursday will be for the 2022 budget, and you'll make those decisions later this year.
Thank you for the clarification. I was totally off on that one.
But when you say now, this is next week's, you just mean now at this point in the year versus later?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, this goes with the amendment that you are currently considering.
Commissioner Edwards has a question.
Somehow this affects what we're doing on costs associated with the lake management districts and how we do business. Where does that fit in?
So you will be approving, should you wish to, the board will approve a transfer of general fund money to the lake funds that will be in an amount equal to the indirect charges that each of those funds currently pays.
Okay.
That's not what's driving the change to this indirect cost plan.
No, but my concern is that if we don't address how we're doing it now with the lake management districts, then each year we have to come back and jockey this whole process around, where if we do make a decision on the lakes, and I don't know that this is the proper place to make it or point to discuss this, but my goal, and I have to refer to my seatmates, is to work on water quality issues and encourage other lakes to form lake management districts. And we've had some correspondence from, I think jointly from Long Lake and Lawrence Lake. They're pretty emphatic that this is going to help water quality around the county for sure. And so I don't want to do something here that then jeopardizes our ability to encourage better lake management in the future. I don't know if I'm articulating that very well.
So in my
Look at the
opinion,
chair, he comes out and pretty much straightens out what I messed up.
I'm leaving you on your own on that one.
in my
Anyway, so I'm wondering that if we go ahead with something here, is it gonna jeopardize something we haven't even decided on yet?
no, Commissioner, nothing you do here will prohibit you in any way from taking actions at a later date that would support water quality in our lakes.
Okay.
And this is really the direction of the board. You provided in subsidizing a little over $26,000 to the lakes, both Long Lake and Lake Lawrence, as part of the budget amendment. The board also discussed the additional requests from the lake management districts, and the board agreed to have a further conversation on the upcoming planning session with more detail. And that is leading to the conversation that you will have during the fall on the 2022-23 budget, whether you like to continue to have a subsidy or whether you like to change the indirect costs associated with the lake management districts. But that is part of your conversation during the fall.
Okay, I think that covers that.
I think we've got it.
4B, resolution for interfund loan.
Yeah, Commissioners, this is for your consideration. This is following up on the many conversations related to the purchasing of the Lyman Plaza building. As you may recall, the strategy behind us, how we're going to be purchasing this building was to have an inter-fund loan from another fund to cover the initial investment. Ultimately, this will be covered by real estate excise tax 1 when the board goes with the general obligation bonds, the whole $50 million that you have in place. But it's a matter of timing in here, meaning, we cannot wait until the board gets to the point of, issuing the bonds, which may be in the next 12 months or so until we detail the many different projects the courthouse campus needs. So this is just a bridge loan until we can get to that point. And the fund that we're going to be borrowing from is the ER&R revolving fund. So that's the strategy. I think the board was briefed on this strategy a while back when you were considering the Monument Plaza acquisition. So Robin, like to elaborate on that?
No, I think you've done a very good job, Romero. We just need to address cash flow needs until such time as the board should approve bonds to work on the courthouse buildings.
Questions from the board?
No, sir.
Well, I've got a lot of questions on this particular issue, but I don't know if this is the right place to be discussing them. I think we've got time that we're going to be working on this.
On Monument, okay. All right, well then we'll move on for now. 4C, Real Estate Brokerage Services Contract Extension.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. As you may know, we have a contract with Kidder Matthews. The initial contract was issued back in 2016, and it has a couple of extensions. And the current extension that we exercise ends on June 30, 2021. And within this existing contract allows for us to extend that for another year. So this particular request is for you to consider extending the existing contract from July 31st, 2021 through July 31st, 2022. As you may know, Kidder Matthews has been very effective in helping us in all the real estate transactions, including the Monument building, the 3400 Monument building back in 2017. They helped us to sell that, as Commissioner Edwards is well aware of the 3400 building. Also, they were involved on the purchase of building number 6, as you may recall, here across the plaza, and also they helped us to sell the McLean property at Harrison Avenue, as well as they were involved on the 6th Avenue property. I think Commissioner Edwards well recalled that that outfit had to revert that building to the county 4 years ago, I believe, and that was in a bad disrepair how they left it. And the Kidder Matthews helped us to sell surplus that property at that time. So I believe the Kidder Matthews provides a very professional perspective in helping the county and other real estate needs. And again, this proposal is for you to consider extended for 1 year. And at that point, will give us enough time to either go with a request for proposals for the same services or go through a different process as we see fit.
I do have a couple of questions, I guess, just in the procedure wise. Do we pay any price up front for extending a contract or to Kidder Matthews for providing this service?
I think it's a fee for service. Is that correct, Robin?
That is correct. The Kidder Matthews earns a commission when they conduct a sale on our behalf. At other times when we ask them to do something specific, like they performed an appraisal on a building that we were considering buying, that fee is set at a rate that is part of the contract, but there are no upfront payments or ongoing set payments to Kidder Matthews.
Okay. And so this doesn't need to go, I know we have the contract extensions, but so it doesn't have to go out for I'm not even sure if it would be an RFP or what it would be.
Yeah, it request for proposals, but in this case, it's just to extend, maximizing the clause that we have in the contract to extend it for another year. And before this contract ends, then we most likely go with a request for proposals just to renew the overall process.
Okay.
Right, and the reason that we did not go forward with an RFP and propose that to the board at this time is we are in the middle of a number of real estate transactions and are working closely with Kidder Matthews for those to be successful projects. So now is not the time to change, but we will go out for an RFP before this contract ends next year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Following up on what Commissioner Mejia brought up, and I don't want this interpreted as disparaging or not towards Kidder Matthews, but I have some of the same concerns that were just brought up. How long have we been doing exclusive business with Kidder Matthews?
The original contract was 5 years ago. They were awarded that contract on an RFP. The initial contract was for 2 years with 3 one-year extensions. The board has opted at the end of the 2 years, they opted to extend for all 3 years at that time. And we are recommending to you 1 more year before we go out again for an RFP.
So we're going one more year rather than beyond what the original agreement? 2 more? 2 more?
Only one.
Oh,
one more year.
Okay. Would anybody know how many bids we received when that went out for an RFP in 2016?
I can look to see if we still have those records. I don't know at this time. I was not heading up central services at the time that was done.
I don't know if we still have those records, but certainly was
Those are all records.
A request for proposals where we entertain bids. Yeah.
And we've got time before we make any, this is next week, for a week away. So could we dig that out just so we know that? And I guess my concern is how much we pay out exclusively to any group that, you know, is above and beyond what government usually does, which is do an RFP. So I know we've got intentions of doing that farther down the road. I guess I just have questions in general about how we're going to make payments to them, what we're gonna make payments to them for. Do we give them like 1% of a purchase price or 5% or 0.5%? I don't know. I don't know any of the particulars that go into the background involving this. And I'd just like to have a little more information before we just go ahead and extend the contract without any more knowledge than we have readily available. Hence, the public would probably not have any more than we have, and I like to do things for the public's benefit.
So I would just like to clarify that we entered into a contract with Kidder Matthews after they were the successful bidder in an RFP process. And I would be happy to provide you with the contracts that outline what we pay and when we pay them.
Well, I don't know as I'm interested in digesting a whole contract. I'd like to have a Reader's Digest version presented in front of the board, just, 5 minutes or something to tell us what's going on, why, when, the process. This predates any board member here having any of that information. That's all. I just wanted the board to be knowledgeable about what we're doing.
Commissioner, to clarify, you want a copy of the contract?
Do I want a copy? No.
So
I don't particularly
So
want a copy.
so what you ask is staff to come back with the key elements? of the
Yeah,
contract
kind of a
next week?
condensed version of,
Okay, yeah, we can work, we
you
can
know,
work on
just-
that.
I mean, I know the contract must be available to the public if they've got any concerns.
How much do we pay them in what trigger events? And
Yeah,
sounds
we'll,
like
we'll,
just a
yeah,
thumbnail
so
summary
we
of
know
what this
just a little
contract
bit.
involves.
we'll do that. We'll do that
For next week.
Next week.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. Then we'll go to, an item I'm very excited to see, which is 4D, setting a public hearing for proposed Cpacer ordinance.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. This has been a source of many conversations with the board, previous board, current board. This is related for you to consider establishing a Cpacer program. That will be a commercial property assessed clean energy and resilience program, which provides financing. It's a form of financing to those individuals, commercial property owners who would like to take advantage of this. Many conversations related to this. In a nutshell, there is a third party who can provide financing for any type of energy efficiency, renewable energy, water conservation, resilience, and improvements on any buildings in Thurston County. And there's a association as to how the loan will be paid on the property taxes associated with those individuals or the property owners of the commercial properties. There is a small role the county needs to play because U.S. legislative authority has to take the action to allow this, and then it will be a little more in detail as to how we're going to be implementing the process. But this is the first step for you to consider setting a public hearing for July 20th, 2021, where you will be receiving public testimony before you consider taking an action establishing the Cpacer program. And Jenica has been working on this diligently. Jenica Machado, our Economic Development Manager, and she's available to answer any questions for you.
No questions at this time.
As we move forward, anticipating moving forward anyway, on this particular issue, and maybe Jenica could give us this information more for the public's knowledge than ours, although I don't know the answers, so maybe my seatmates do or know. But there was something mentioned when we had a briefing on this topic, and it had to do kind of with an excessive interest rate that was attached to these type of loans. And I'm trying to figure out if that is always a negotiable rate, or is that kind of a standard, how that is determined. And then also the lien process about somebody can't pay it off, what's that step? Is there a lien? I know different banks are doing this. I don't know which ones, and I don't know why they've chosen to put money into this, and some have and some haven't. I'm just trying to get it for clarity as to far as those couple of issues. Is the interest rate based on current rates? It seems to me I heard something about somebody from back east that was giving us a presentation, said something about 5%. And I know where a normal loan, industrial or commercial loan might have been 3% or something. And I'm just trying to clarify that. I don't think I ever did hear an answer. So I'm interested in interest rates and guarantees. Is there any chance that we could have a little bit? I don't think the public is going to know one thing about this other than some of those from the environmental community that brought it to our attention.
I can follow up with our program experts and local contacts to get more information on the interest rates and, as you had mentioned, what is the next step if someone is unable to pay? And I can provide those at the next time that we speak.
All right, so just add that to your list for what you present, Jenica, when we have a public hearing. Board's good on moving that, okay. 5A. Thank you, Jenica. 5A is Community Planning and Economic Development, Capital Improvement Program Amendment. Minor or major, I don't know. But
Well, yeah, and again, you're going to be holding a public hearing related to the are gonna use the amendment to the capital facilities plan this afternoon. As I stated earlier, you will have a follow-up this Thursday morning, 9 in the morning, where you discuss the public testimony. And this is the formal action.
Oh, I see. So it connects directly to, okay.
So it's the formal action. So it's a couple of steps that we need to take. And later on, you will see the formal action to approve the budget amendment as well. So everything is coinciding.
You've already, somebody read the commissioners' minds and already eliminated the word minor from this thing. That's amazing. Good job, Ian.
I'm on the same wavelength as Amy's saying, so an issue maybe.
Okay, all right, well, that's straightforward.
Although we never talked about it, I will say.
All right, another exciting item is 5B, conservation easement for Lorraine Tibet.
Well, you know, first of all, I really have to give kudos to Mr. Tibetan for the diligence that he has really put forth related to the habitat conservation plan. To give you a little bit of perspective, anybody who would any citizen who would like to develop their property within the areas, critical areas where the pocket gopher is located, if they found evidence of the endangered species, those citizens have a couple of options. One, under the current conditions. One is to avoid having those impacts related to their development. Second is wait until the county secures habitat conservation plan, which we're in the process of hopefully doing that this year. And third is a citizen can go about and develop their own habitat conservation plan related to that particular impact. Mr. Tibetan has gone through this process on a couple of occasions, and it's not an easy process because the habitat conservation plan is specifically for this development. It has to be a transaction between the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the citizen. And it's a long process, and it's it's not for the faint of the heart per se, going through this process. And that goes back to Mr. Tibetan diligence to continue with the process as to if we can get to that point. The end result of a habitat conservation plan is to get what they said an incidental take permit, ITP. And the incidental take permit allows for this particular property owner to go ahead and do their developments they have planned as a result of their habitat conservation plan. But it's a condition in there because it's a mitigation aspect, right? The impacts and the mitigation. So the means of mitigation is to set aside, in this case, 0.5 acres for pocket gopher habitat. And that has to be put in a perpetual easement. But also the U.S. Fish and Wildlife requirements, it doesn't allow for the same property owner to have ownership of that easement in perpetuity. It has to be a third party. And that's where the county plays a role. And we have, I believe this is the fourth time, or maybe the fifth time, if my memory serves me well, where the board has helped those citizens who have gone through the process of developing their own habitat conservation plan in order for us to take the responsibility of this easement, where we have to conduct annual inspections and provide an annual report to U.S. Fish and Wildlife to ensure this easement, in this case 0.5 acres, it stays within the context of that habitat preservation. So, long story short, this is a request for the board to accept Mr. Tibetan conservation easement, which is for, I believe, for his daughter, one of his daughters, Lorraine. I'm sorry, it's for about 0.75 acres of this parcel, which is located in 08048 186th Avenue Southeast in Rochester, Washington. Brett, did I cover just about a little bit of that history? Anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, County Manager. No, that was outstanding. Thank you for the history as well.
Okay, we've done these before. Are there questions on this? Go ahead.
I guess, I think Mr. Tibetan's middle name ought to be Tenacity, because he has really stuck with this. And we, like the county manager said, we've done others. And I really think there's a discrepancy on what we say when we're talking about this particular activity. And I don't look at these as a development, the ones that we've done. They're an individual personal project where a citizen wanted to build a house on their property. It was not like a development where, you know, many houses and roads and all that. Not saying that that couldn't be done, but each one of these that I'm aware of have been a project. And I think there's a distinct difference to the public. A house building, you know, you're gonna build yourself a house on your own property versus I'm gonna build 100 houses. That's a project. I mean, it's a project versus a development. So words do matter, and I think what this is an individual house for one of his family members, and my hat is off to him. He has really done a lot of work on this topic, and I think any way we can help him out. And then once the Habitat Conservation Plan is in place, then I think this starts to revert back at some point.
Yeah, as long as we compensate for that easement.
So, anything?
No, sir.
I think the stats tell the story. I mean, we know how many people would like to have an incidental take permit. And I have more fingers than people in the county that actually have them. So there's a reason for that. It's difficult, and Mr. Tibetan has stayed the course on multiple projects. And that's wonderful, and I'm glad we're able to help him get across that finish line. So let's go to item 6A, contract with Uptrust for a messaging communication service. This is an information technology item.
Yeah, this, Commissioners, this is related to a service the Office of Public Defense needs, and it's specifically related to text messaging between the clients. And what this particular application allows for a two-way text messaging communications with your clients, and some of the improvements that you will see with this effort is humanize indigent defense clients, experience in the judicial system, reduce incarceration and warrants issue, because by texting, they don't miss court dates. And also decrease the administrative burden the Office of Public Defense will do by trying to track and contact those clients on the many different activities they are involved. This is a sole source request for you to consider, and this is from with Uptrust for $21,960 with a $7,200 annually after that. What is a sole source? Because as you know, the Office of Public Defense as well as the prosecuting attorneys, they already developed an implementing a new application, software application, the case management system. And this particular outfit fits within the requirements of the new application. The internal auditor has reviewed this proposal as a sole source and is recommending the board to approve this request. I have Dennis Osorio, the Director of Information Technology, as well as Patrick O'Connor, the Director of Office of Public Defense. If you have any additional questions, or perhaps you can chime in if I missed or misstated anything.
No, I think you covered it well, Romero. Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Osorio, IT Director. I did want to state that the $21,000 does cover 2 years of licensing costs as well as the integration.
Patrick O'Connor's here from Public Defense. Pat, did you have anything to add on this request?
Good morning, Commissioners. I do not. I appreciate Dennis and his team's work on this and getting us to this point. We're excited about it, and then I'd ask for the board's support. I'm happy to answer any other questions I can, but I know you're pressed on time.
Commissioner Mejia?
I do. What fund is this coming from?
2021 Revenue. 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 20
This will be funded out of the project funds for the new General Technologies case management system for using some of the contingency funds that we have not used for the project. And then ongoing licensing costs will be put in IT rates in future years.
Okay. It seems like a great program and definitely and closing the gap. But I was thinking, has pretrial services thought about installing this for them as well? Is there an ability to expand later on, Dennis, if it works great for public defense and other departments want to take a part in this?
Yes, I believe pretrial services has a texting service that integrates with their application that they use. I think the issue is a lot of these texting services, they integrate with certain applications. So we're kind of getting a couple different texting services, but they're the ones that's actually partnering with the application vendors. Like this one is partnering with General Technologies as the preferred texting service.
That's a new programming that public defense has, correct?
That is correct. We are in the process of that project with a tentative go live of mid to late next month.
That's exciting for public defense.
That's correct. But it's exciting for us. Thank you, Commissioner. I know the prosecutors are excited too. We're working feverishly, balancing anxiety and productivity to get it stood up and meet the go live date and this system. And I've spoken with the prosecutors. It may be a system that they may look at in the future as well as they contact witnesses, law enforcement, victims. So there may be additional opportunities in the future as well.
Thank you.
My curiosity is, why do we have two separate vendors, but we're not going out to bid for this particular contract? They're not similar enough. The pretrial services people use one group, and looks like maybe public defense is going to use another, and now maybe the prosecutor might get involved in one or the other, but it sounds like we've got several vendors out there. How come we're not going out for a bid?
We did follow the sole source guidelines, and we did look at the MSRC. I always get those letters. That list, and I think there was only one vendor that was able to do this, and they were not able to meet the timelines or give any estimates. And Patrick may be able to talk to a little bit more about that.
That's all accurate. Commissioner, it's a good question. I could see facially how that would look like a solution, but they really are specific to each business, and specific to us. And our request is not only the ability to remind clients of their court dates, and again, that's reminding all clients, not just specific portions of clients, which we're doing now through other services. It's every client that we have. And it also, for us in our business need, is sending clients reminders of their appointment dates with their attorneys. That is one of the biggest gaps that we have that's unique to our business, is ongoing hundreds of appointments every year, just like you get a text message of your dentist appointment next week. So folks can come in here in our office so we can have less delays in their case, send them reminders just as we all need in daily life. So it's a little bit different business need for us. We're not just reminding them of their court date. We're also reminding them of their obligations to interact with their attorneys.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a question just about the timing of this coming. I mean, is this considered to be something we already, because it connects to the software upgrade, is it considered to be a piece of that, or was there leftover money, I think somebody said, or is this COVID related? Like, why wouldn't we just be considering this in the fall for next year's budget?
So on the main project, we did budget a certain amount of interfaces for the new application, and as we progressed through the project, some of those interfaces were no longer needed. So that's the funds that we're repurposing for this product.
Perhaps to address Commissioner Messon's question in terms of the timing, because the case management system is going to be up and running in the next couple of months, I think it will be timely to have this complementary application coincide with the implementation of the case management system. Is that correct?
I would agree with that, Romero. It's not mission critical to go live. It's simultaneous and will probably come online post go live for the entire system, but that is a real benefit to moving this project forward now is as we're going live with this larger project, that this additional suite to the system for our business purposes will come online in the following months after the big go live.
Can you give an example of something that you, Dennis, that you just alluded to that we thought we were going to need that now we're not pursuing or we're not getting?
Yeah, so the example in this, what I was referring to with the new Journal Technologies case management, we identified, I believe, 5 interfaces that were going to cost roughly $10,000 per office and department, so prosecutor and defense, to be able to connect to the new Journal Technologies. Patrick might be able to say exactly what the interfaces were because I'll end up butchering what the data flow is in between those. And then we came to the conclusion that not all those interfaces were needed on both sides, on both the prosecution and defense. So
Yeah, that's correct. Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say some of the interfaces I think include, what was it, Sector was one?
Sector was one, which is a law enforcement management, criminal management system from the law enforcement side, I believe State Patrol. And we worked in tandem with the prosecutor along the way on this. And we identified, we wanted to have early on in the project, identify as many possible APIs that we may need. And then as we've ticked along, some have become not something we're bringing into the system. And that's one that off the top of my head.
So in a way, you're substituting in this for something else that you determined wasn't as important or needed.
Correct. It was an opportunity.
Anything else from the board?
No, sir.
Okay, sounds like we're good over there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Public Health and Social Services is next. 7A, DSHS Long-Term Payable Interlocal Agreement number 21632364.
Yeah, Commissioners, we, in order for us to provide services to our community, we have a reimbursable basis with the State Department of Social and Health Services for long-term payables. So that creates somewhat of an issue when we engage vendors in expenditures. And then what happens is that we have to cover under the general fund and other funds until we get reimbursed from the state. So this approach has worked very well, which the state give us, in this case, an upfront money to cover all the cash flow issues. In this case, is for July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, is for $774,651.66. And that's really is related as to how we're going to be managing cash flow when we provide services to our citizens. Charlie, or any additional perspective on this?
Ramiro, that was an excellent overview of this program. DSHS offers us this working advance, exactly as you said, to help us to deal with cash flow as we contract out with our developmental disabilities state providers. And Annalisa is also here, who manages that program, if you have any questions.
Hi, Annalisa.
Good morning.
And this is a continuation of something we're doing already, right?
So we provide services to developmental disabilities portions of our population.
Yep.
And there is a lot of programs that we do, and there's a lot of vendors involved within that. I implemented the program. So there is really, this is a good thing to have ourselves a cash flow, a balance that we can probably easily access the revenues so we can pay those vendors. That's really what this is.
Interesting. I don't, it's a one-year agreement. I don't recall.
We have
You have done
in the
this
past.
before?
Yes.
Just didn't stick. One of many. Okay, well, it sounds straightforward. All right.
Yeah.
Good to go there. 7B, amendments to ESG CV contracts for homeless services.
So let me take you back to November 3rd, 2020, when the Board of County Commissioners approved our contract amendments with the Washington State Department of Commerce. Will the county receive funding under the Emergency Solutions Grant COVID program for a total of $3,882,000. The Emergency Solutions Grant COVID program must be used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus among individuals and families who are homeless or receive homeless assistance to support the impacts of the COVID-19 emergency. In December, following up to that action, receiving the money from the Department of Commerce, the Board of County Commissioners on December 1st, 2020, approved specific contracts with the specific providers for a total of $2,577,286. Fast forward to today, there is an opportunity to revise that, to increase that amount in the allocations to those individuals the board approved back in December 1st. So for you is to consider amendments to those contracts. And the amendments include the Community Action Council of Lewis County, a reduction of $500,000. That's for rental assistance because they have received, as you heard on Friday, Commissioner Minister, they have received a lot of money in rental assistance and they have a lot of work ahead of them, so they don't need additional funds for that. Also an increase for City of Olympia for hygiene services for $30,000. Also an increase to Family Support Center service. Family Support Center Sans Out for shelter, hotel vouchers for $420,000. Interfaith Works for the First Christian Emergency Shelter for an additional $400,000. Also to Interfaith Works for the 344 Martin Way Shelter for an additional $400,000. Partners in Prevention Education Shelter in Place, $200,000. In the Safe Place, that will be for shelter, hotel vouchers for $120,000. That is a total of $1,070,000 in addition to the contracts that you approved back in December 1st, 2020, which that brings a total of the $3,530,676 on the overall award of those contracts. Tom, you'd like to provide additional perspective on this?
That's an excellent summary. I'm happy to answer any questions. This will fully spend out the ESG CV contracts. The other funds that were not part of this was $150,000 for the scattered site program, was for also use some ESG CV money, and the remainder is for kind of the administration for our staff to operate the program. 6 months ago, back in December, we intentionally held back this money, not knowing what the needs were going to be for our crisis response system as COVID evolved. So this was an intentional decision on our part to hold on to these funds until this time of year, so we knew what the needs of our community were moving forward. So we're like to continue to support these programs as shelters remain socially distanced. They're remaining providing 24/7 services. So a lot of the practices and programs they've put in place since the beginning of the pandemic back in March, April of 2020 that we put into place remain in place, that we'd like to continue to fund for the remainder of this year and into early 2021.
Questions from the board?
No, sir.
I think there will be a list if the public's interested on who we're giving money out to and stuff is part of that motion, right? We're just doing a cumulative amount, right?
But this online should be.
It's online if somebody's curious. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Great, thank you.
Let's go to items C and D.
So item C and D are somewhat related. And so hopefully I can describe the relationship. This is related to the contract with the health authority associated with the Criminal Justice Treatment Account, the CJTA. As you know, the CJTA is allocated to fund substance use disorder treatment and recovery support services on individuals involved in the criminal justice system. So back in, we have a contract with the Healthcare Authority goes from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. This proposal is for you to consider an amendment to that contract to reduce that amount by $75,000. The reason as to why we are considering reducing that amount, meaning giving back that to the state, is because due to COVID-19, we just weren't able to process some of the individuals associated with the judicial system. They meet this criteria because there was no court hearings in the last year, so we could be able to approve that. So the way it works is on a yearly basis, if we don't spend, we have to send that money back, right? But on the same item is for the next biennium in which we're going to receive money to provide the same services. So that's how it works.
It's mechanical.
It's a mechanical. So here's the contract from this year that we are not able to spend the amount of money they give us, send that back. And the next item that you will have, and I will describe here in a minute, is to receive the money for the next biennium for the same purposes. Is that online, Carrie?
Yes, that's correct.
Carrie, can you just refresh all of our memories? I believe last year we anticipated this, and I think you proposed and we approved an expansion of some of the parameters so we could, and so I'm guessing that this 75,000 is a smaller amount than we originally projected, at least at one point, because I know you were thinking ahead and helping us expand our programs. Can you just remind us of that?
Yes, good memory. So in the state fiscal year that's about to end, so the year that started July 1st, so we've had the way CJTA is allocated is by statute, there's a local panel that involves a lot of the leaders in our justice system. So sheriff's office, prosecuting attorney, public defense, the courts, et cetera. So there's been a plan, and we did kind of anticipate this. I came to you, I think, in February of this year and revised that plan. We included more uses to try to spend down more, and we didn't get there. A couple explanations for that. It's definitely COVID related. The other piece is we were allocated more money in this state fiscal year that's ending now. The legislature had approved additional funding. And that was earmarked specifically for treatment courts only. So CJTA has a little bit broader eligibility in general, but this additional pool of money that the legislature authorized starting in this about to end state fiscal year was treatment courts only. And the timing was a little tough in terms of getting money allocated for treatment courts at exactly the time when, as a result of COVID, our treatment court populations are half what they usually are. So that is kind of the primary explanation for why we aren't able to spend all the funding in this fiscal year that's ending now. And then, as the county manager outlined, the next item is the contract for the new fiscal year or the new state biennium. And because of some of the work we've done over the past couple months to expand eligible uses or expand our plan to have more uses, I am optimistic we will spend our full allocation and hopeful, of course, that we will have more treatment court participants as well, which will also allow us to serve more people and spend more funds.
Questions from the board on 7C or 7D?
I guess
sorry, County Manager.
Hey, Carrie, can you just briefly describe how this allocation is being decided, particularly related to the CJTA panel that we have in the county? Who forms that panel? And because that's really the panel in which they provide recommendations as to where the money should go to. Is that correct?
Yes. So again, and that's dictated by statute that says every community will have a local CJTA panel. So it's representation from the prosecuting attorney's office, the sheriff's office, public defense, superior court, and drug court are both specifically named in the statute. A substance use disorder treatment provider, and I think that's it. That's who's named in the statute. Kind of informally as non-voting members, we have also been including district court and pretrial services. because that office and department, we can spend funds there, but they are not officially members of the CJTA panel as named in statute. So that group, we convene about quarterly and talk about, how should we use this funding? What should be in the plan? How is spending? What can we adjust? So we've been fairly active in trying to strategically use this, and we haven't gotten it quite dialed yet, but we're getting there. The new biennium, I think we have some good opportunities and have laid a lot of groundwork. So.
Commissioner Edwards is next.
On C, what we're actually doing is making a refund of $75,000, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Is there any reason it just doesn't say that plainly for the public some people do follow, I guess, what we're doing, so it doesn't explain that. Saying that makes it easier. Just from a layman's perspective here.
Are you suggesting revising the motion
Right. What he's saying is instead of reduce the total maximum consideration is to refund $75,000.
I don't know, just something in there that makes it pretty simple. We're just refunding it because we didn't use it.
I can change the language. Let's go ahead and change the language, Carrie.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Let's go ahead and change the language. That as opposed on the action to say reduce the total maximum considerations just to refund $75,000.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Anything else on 7C or D?
No, sir.
All right. Plowing ahead fast we can. Item 8A, Public Works. We've only got 15 Public Works items.
It's quite
the season.
A couple of weeks, yeah.
All right, 8A, Professional Services Contract for Materials Testing and Inspection Services, On-Call Consultant.
Yeah, the board authorized issue request for proposals, and on May 27, 2021, the Department of Public Works received 4 proposals for material testing and inspection services, an on-call consultant. The result of that process, the department is requesting the board to authorize a contract with Material Testing and Consulting Incorporated from Olympia, Washington, for a total amount of $250,000. That's the ceiling. So that is not what we pay, is a fee for service. In that, this particular contract will go for 6 years. So 6 years, maximum $250,000 to provide the material testing for all the construction activities that Public Works does. Steve Bricker's here.
Commissioner Edwards has a question.
Was the decision made based on the dollar amount or qualifications or both? We had 4 bids apparently.
Yes, Steve Bricker, Construction Manager for Public Works here. There was 5 factors, Commissioner Edwards, but we considered their qualifications, experience, past performance, references, the proximity and responsiveness of each company, and then the services offered as well as the rates.
And this money comes out of the road fund? If we spend this money, we might only spend $100,000 in a year, right? Depending on the need.
Yeah, the amount of testing per year will vary, but each individual project budget, the testing is paid for out of that project's budget. This isn't a separate budgeted item.
So that might be the depth of the asphalt or the strength of the concrete.
It will maybe we have a grant on any of those projects. The grant also Culvert has.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. That's 8A. Let's stop for a moment and consider where we're at. It's noon. We have a lot of stuff left to cover. I guess the question is, how much farther can we go time-wise, and what items have time-sensitive components?
With your pleasure, you can go probably 12:30 if you like. And I think
is there some reason why we should jump to a particular item versus?
The rest of the items from Public Works is pretty much something related to award and contract. The only items for your attention is let me get to the point. Is items 8D and 8C. 8D is an item related to the development agreement with Common Holdings.
And that's still on that's on the agenda under 8.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that needs to be revised, and also just to the members of the public will be for you to consider authorizing the department, Public Works, to start negotiations with the highest current proposer on the solid waste contracts. And I'd like to take some time to explain that.
Okay, well, let's go kind of from here. Let's start to go in order of importance. So let's jump to 8C.
Yeah, 8C. This is, Commissioners, this related to the solid waste contracts that we currently have in place to provide services related to the operations of the work, the waste and recovery center, transportation, and final disposal of the solid waste that we cover in the county. This does not include collections. That's just to make sure that is the case. It also includes recycle and also organics. So in 2018, the Board of County Commissioners deliberated, them in different options as to how you can probably go about and renew the contracts that are coming to an end, or they've elapsing with the current vendor. So the result of that conversation is the Board of County Commissioners provided a direction to go with that request for proposals. The request for proposals was intended to be transparent and a process to promote competitions to ensure the waste and handle and disposal and environmentally sound that meet sustainability goals of the county. So the result of that process, the staff entertained before issuing the request for proposals a pre-submittal meetings with potential vendors. And that occurred late last year with all the potential vendors visited the sites, provided asked questions, and the result of that, we follow up with the actual issuance of the request for proposals. The request for proposals was released on January 13, 2021, and the deadline to submit this proposal was April 8, 2021. We received 3 proposals, very thick binders. The board had extensive conversations in an executive session related to those 3 proposals. I believe all the questions that were answered to the board. So this particular action is for you to consider to confirm their proposal scoring results of that process and the highest scoring proposer of solid waste contracts, the request for proposals. And also authorize the department to engage in formal negotiations with the highest scoring proposer as a result of this process. I know there's a lot more information, Karen. If you want to add anything that I missed, I just tried to be very high level since the board has been involved in this particular process for a while.
No, thank you, Romero. I thought you did a great job of giving context. So I don't necessarily have anything to add, but certainly I'm available for questions if any of the commissioners have them.
Just to clarify, it was 2 extended executive sessions that the board addressed this, just so the public knows. Anything from the board on what this is about?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to try and make this quick. As we move forward, I always think of negotiations as you're going to get this group to give you a better deal than this group. So I think somebody did say something about a lot of times that isn't the normal way to do business, that you don't usually. I think about it as like an arbitrator going from one to the other. But no, I want to see the thing go forward. I would like to see, and I don't know if it can happen, and I've not heard of an RCW that prohibits it, but there might be a past practice that prohibits it. or maybe keeps that from happening. But I'm still kind of curious as we move forward with the best bid based on the criteria put out by Public Works, why you wouldn't want to have maybe the top two. I guess you couldn't do it with the top three, but because there was only three. But and then bounce back and forth. Well, what do you do this for? You know, what do you do that for?
I feel a little uncomfortable on that question because you asked that question in the executive session.
No.
And the attorney provided that answer.
I know, I never saw an RCW. I wasn't gonna go there because I don't wanna talk about executive sessions. But I am interested if there is an RCW versus a practice. I'm just looking for the best deal for the taxpayers. And I'm not convinced that if we don't do serious negotiation, we get the best deal. That's all. I know the bid process, and I know the very hard work that staff did putting this together. I'm just always looking for the best deal. That's all, so I just bring that up. So I'm gonna support moving ahead with this, but I am very concerned that we get the best deal for the taxpayers. That's all.
And with all due respect, that is the objective.
I know it is. I'm always looking for a little more criteria to get a better deal. That's all. But I want the process to go ahead, and I think staff did a good job. That's just my 2 cents I'm throwing in, and if there is an RCW or past practice, I'd like to hear it. We didn't get into any discussion on it. So,
Okay,
that's all.
very good. Then we've got, let's go to 8D.
Yeah, and this is related to the public hearing that you held on June 8th related to a proposed development agreement with Kaufman Holdings. And this is related to, for them to upfront traffic impact fees to help us build the runabout infrastructure at Sargent Road and Highway 12. This has been a long negotiations. I think both parties negotiated in good faith, and this is a good agreement for the board to consider approving. During the public hearing, you hear some testimony related to this, as well as the board has, I believe, follow up with a couple of questions with me, and I have not heard any additional questions related to this item. So this item is for your consideration, taking action next week, unless you want to have additional conversation.
No.
I'm good.
You good as well?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Then, so we've got, should we go back to 8B, or where, do you want to jump, where do we need to go next? Romero?
So the only item, the rest of the items of public works, I can just address those. I don't think there's any, it's just considered awarding contracts.
And these are all, it looks to me like these are all projects that we've had on our capital. I mean, I've seen all these projects, right?
Yeah, so it's
Burfoot, Deschutes Parkway and Park and.
So I don't think there's any specific controversy to that. The only item here is the 9A, but it's already tracking on that. That is the result of the public hearing related to the budget amendment today. And then it's for you to consider a formal action next week. And again, we will have a briefing on Thursday morning, 9 o'clock, where you will be discussing the public testimony you might receive this afternoon.
And we've all discussed the public hearing regarding the extension ordinance. I mean, we discussed what that's about. So I think the board's tracking that. And let's jump to, I don't think we need to take up anything regarding proclamations, advisory boards. That's, I mean, can we defer till next week? Okay, PIO, anything? You good? Okay, then let's look at our commissioner item 9.2. American Rescue Plan funds, and I think the fireworks, both of those have a time component, correct?
Yes, I will address those quickly.
Okay.
No, quickly, I'm sorry. The American Rescue Plan, as a matter of context, the county received a direct allocation by the federal government as a result of the American Rescue Plan Act. And we received the money in two installments. One is $28 million this year, which we already have in our accounts, and the next allocation will be a year later in 2022. I presented to the board early in the year a proposal that included help to businesses that have been impacted by the COVID-19, as the board has already allocated funds, the CRA funding to Thurston Strong and United Way. My proposal also at that time included setting aside $5 million for affordable housing, an additional, I believe, $4 million for sewer and water projects, and $1 million for broadband investments. And also included at that time $6 million to go back and ask for reimbursement for past expenditures in 2020. That was what it was presented to you. Fast forward to today, on June 8th, we have a Treasury guidance that has put us in the position that we may not be able to implement some of the elements that we presented to you. So the request for you to, where it has not changed on the new guidance, is the help to the businesses. So what I'm asking you today is to consider approving a phase 1 of the plan that I proposed to you back early in the year. And this plan to you is pretty much aligned to the initial proposal for you to allocate $10 million to Thurston Strong to help us navigate through providing services to the business, which includes, this is the overall Thurston Strong proposal and your attachments. For the public benefits, it includes a Thurston County Jobs Program for $1.2 million. Includes a Thurston Businesses relaunch for $2.2 million that will be issuing grants, I believe. Minority Enterprises Investment for $3.3 million. Thurston Agricultural Market Reset for $2.1 million, and that's to address the agriculture areas of our community. The tourism recovery for $100,000, education and climate resilience for the task force for $100,000. Here's a new for you, is $100,000 for vaccine incentives. We have coordinated with public health to see how the business community can help us to enhance the vaccination rates by providing some incentives, and that is allowed on this plan. And also for an additional $900,000 for you to issue grants to the nonprofits that are not associated with United Way. That is the proposal before you related to Thurston Strong, which is a total of $10 million. On the second page is the allocation to United Way, and that is $1.5 million, which includes shelter programs, senior nutrition support programs, food bank and other nutrition basic needs programs, youth support, and administrative elements to implement those programs. So that takes you just about $11.5 million out of the $28 million initial allocation. What I asked the board is to consider taking, approving this so we can start issuing the grants to the community and start helping our community. And give me a couple of weeks to come back with another, with a more robust plan based on the new Treasury guidance, in 2 weeks for the remainder of the funds. And we will bring those proposals. At this point, we're still working on that proposal, but I would like for you, the board, to consider this initial investment to our community.
Jenica's up there. If we have questions for her or the county manager, start with Commissioner Mejia.
1 second.
Yep, Commissioner Edwards.
Under the economic development portion, economic development district, you're reducing that 100,000. What's the impact on that?
No, what has happened is the total allocations because they come with their sources. On the column, Thurston County is the Thurston County investment.
Yes. Oh, I thought, okay, so you're not reducing that?
No, it's just the portion of Thurston County is not.
This is Thurston Strong telling us what their total amount they've got.
On the
and
overall
then the blue
program.
is what part's coming from us under their proposal.
That's correct.
It took me a minute to figure that out as well.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that applies to everything that's
Jenica,
reduced.
we're tracking on this.
You know, versus there's a 0, but they got 120.
That means they got it from somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
Okay, that's all I was wondering. Okay, so they got even Thurston Merck's jobs program, you know, $1 million
From somewhere else.
less from somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's all.
And you heard on the Thurston Chamber of Commerce annual meeting this past week, how much of an impact, positive impact, Thurston County has done by allocating the coronavirus relief fund last year. It has been benefited the businesses, it has benefited just the overall business industry, and I believe this investment will continue to be part of that.
So
if you're okay with that, I would like to probably walk you through, if you would like to entertain some suggestions in terms of additional brackets on this.
I have a question on why is it separated? The United Way and it says phase 2. It made me think maybe that was the money for next year and.
No, phase 2 is based on phase 1 of last year, United Way, because United Way already provided those services last year.
That's confusing because you're calling this phase 1 for the art.
I created the conflict, sorry.
My question is on the ag piece, and I'm very supportive of supporting our agricultural markets, but this may be a question for Jenica. I really need to, that's a lot of money, and I really need to know that there's a need, there's a demand, where is the agricultural market? Because if the board remembers, and Commissioner Mejia wasn't here, the $750,000 that we allocated for that was an afterthought. That wasn't part of the original proposal. We had some additional money to allocate, and I think the board came up with that. Or, I mean, we kind of cooked that up out of thin air, and I'm glad we did, and I heard it was well received. But is there another $2.1 million worth of need from the agricultural? Have they suffered that much? I mean, I need to make sure these dollars are precious, and you know, I trust Thurston Strong because they've created a community coalition and they've worked these programs. But given that the board kind of cooked this one up, and it's a lot more money than we were even thinking about last year, I need to know that this is needed, because there's a lot of things that this money could do for the community. We've got to make sure we don't misallocate here at that scale.
We have connected with Stephen Bramwell at WSU to ensure that this was in line with what he believed could be used within the community. As far as how it would specifically be used, we were still, in discussion of what are the parameters and the difference in parameters with the ARP funding opposed to the CRF to see what additional uses we could do apart from grants.
This is just me, one commissioner speaking, but I might be wanting to hold that piece for maybe a couple of weeks to consider. I'm not necessarily ready to sign off on $2.1 million for this without knowing more information.
Suggestion?
Yeah.
Perhaps. Maybe that's probably some of the parameters that I was asking you to consider.
Okay.
If you consider this plan, maybe my next step will be, what additional brackets you want to.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Meaning, if the $2.1 million allocated, if they not meet that total expenditure, that money needs to come back for a further discussion with the board. Whatever is remainder. And we can probably set aside in the next 6 months.
Right, but Jenica suggested that they're still kind of working out what those parameters would even be for the first, so I want to know that. I want to know what we're spending this money toward, because it sounds like it's not exactly what we did with the $750,000 last year. I don't know what the need is within the larger agricultural market and what people are going to be getting these resources to do.
Well, is Stephen Bromwell, I saw him up there earlier, but I don't see him right now. I'd kind of like to hear what he's got to say. I don't know, as a counter or in defense of that, because he must have a pretty good idea. And so I hate to make decisions, where we don't have all the information.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Let's delay that piece. Let's delay that little chunk so we can get more information.
Is there any, are there, okay, so that's what I'm hearing is, everything else meets it, right? And you want to move ahead soon, you wanna have,
Well, and I think I have been waiting until we can get the criteria from Treasury, understand the criteria, and waiting until I can give you the overall plan for you to consider based on the new criteria. But I feel that from my point of view, I'm not doing service to the businesses who are in need at this point for additional help. And that is why I bring in this proposal on my phase one of the overall proposal, is just to start moving this forward and start helping those businesses in need. That is the purpose of this conversation, Commissioner.
is there any other, maybe this is one that we can't tell public we know a lot about right now. The person that does apparently is not here. But are there other amounts on here that we're being asked to do this in a 5-minute discussion? And not that we haven't talked about some of this ahead of time, but it seems like when we're in a situation where we're gonna do $10 million and thumbs up on headed that direction, I don't know, is 5 minutes enough time to really discuss, any of it? And I question that, so that's where I'm at. I see that.
Yeah, it's 11.5 million.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, and so I'm reading through the second page over here for United Way, and a lot of the things that they're going to provide, it's a process that I just went through with the RHC, and this is what we were looking for. So for me, it's like, we've gone through this grant process with the RHC. Why doesn't this just go through the RHC and support those programs that we've already vetted and gone through? And none of them got all the funding they wanted. This would help those programs that have already been scored, and because I'm not seeing anything here different than what I just went through and dedicated so much time through that grant process.
So if I may jump in, there is a major difference here, and that is that this is COVID response money. And we have to be able to show that all of the money we spend is a need due to COVID. So to just pick up grants that had gone through another process, they'd have to go through at least one more hoop. I'm not saying that that's not possible, but do bear in mind that what we're talking here is COVID response money.
Whereas we would have specific requirements with United Way. I'm just trying to flesh out your comment, Robin. We would be asking United Way, here's your sidebars, you have to make that finding so that we're compliant with the grant.
That's absolutely correct. And that's going to be in the subrecipient contracts that we sign with each of these organizations. And there are way more reporting requirements and sideboards than there had been last year.
So what this plan, it gives you the initial brackets. But even Thurston Strong on the next subrecipient contract, we need to make sure they meet the intent of this COVID impact to any items that is listed in here. So, and that's really is up to us, to Thurston Strong as well as United Way, to make us bridge that gap. Because if for instance, if they don't, because this is based on a reimbursable basis. It's not like we get into a subrecipient contract and say, here you are, give you all the money. It has to be, if we don't see anything doesn't meet the intent of the federal funds, we just don't pay it, or we don't allocate those funds. So at the end, what may be the probably, maybe some money left over, the board may needs to reallocate.
Can I ask this question? When we first started to talk about this structure, and again, I totally understand what Commissioner Edwards is talking about, but I also want to be fair. Like, we had a proposal along this lines that's been percolating here from the very beginning, a couple of months. So we've been kind of chewing on this approach. We just didn't know the specifics from Treasury. But anyway, my point was, in that original proposal, there was money proposed to be set aside for transitional housing. My question is there anything about what we're hearing from Treasury that would foreclose our ability to make an expenditure like that.
No, first reaction, I think transitional housing is still an eligible activity.
Yeah, so when I see $2.1 million and I think about the number of micro shelters that could potentially be constructed, I just have to make sure, and what that could do about closing camps, I have to be very careful about acting too hastily without kind of the underpinning of what we're doing.
Yep.
The Thurston Strong stuff to me is justified, but the agricultural piece, we constructed that, and I want to make sure that it's still a need.
Well, maybe you want to set that number aside until you get additional information.
That's right.
But again, my proposal is for you to consider, and here are the activities in green, all the many different activities, how they want to do this. I think in a way for me, I apologize if I come across that I give you 5 minutes to make a decision. But it's at least that for me is a sense of urgency to put the money to those organizations who have been affected by COVID-19 and start helping them recover from this. That is the sense of urgency that I have.
Do you have any specific examples that, you don't have to give examples on everything, but I mean, just when we're asked to get, dole out, 11, 10, 11, 12 million and doing it in a hurry, I never like doing things in a hurry without all the information. And the more money that's involved, the more substantial information that I probably need to do so. I'm not questioning what's going on here, but the process is going at the speed of light, and I don't know that we need to do that. And if you had an example, well, the bridge is gonna fall down tomorrow if we don't do something, that's different.
Yes.
But even going back to the ag, I don't know how many farmers were adversely affected by this whole stay at home and all that kind of stuff. Didn't sell products, didn't do things. But I also don't know about the shelter business, where we're going there.
Well,
so.
Jenica, like what I would need to hear is like, out of the money we allocated last year.
For the agricultural?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did we, did we have 100 applications and we funded 50? Did we have 30 applications and we funded 15? How far did that money go and how stretched were those resources? And then if there's a pivot as to what this proposed amount of money is gonna do, then I need to hear that and specifically hear that that's a critical need. As critical as transitional housing, which we all know, and the City of Olympia just did a survey, a community survey, which it just blew off the chart from the community as to what the number one thing they wanted resources invested in was housing and dealing with that. So I mean, I need to hear that kind of that's where we're at in terms of what the priorities ought to be.
I would.
Oh, go ahead, Robin.
No, go ahead, Jenica.
I was just going to say, I can look up the ag grant stats from last time. We do have those. We did hear from, the ag community that there was a need from farmers, and we were able to provide those grants, much needed grants. We have, testimony from people who were recipients of how much that saved their farm and their business. And so I've just asked a colleague to text me those. I hope to get those to you in a minute about what last year's impact was.
But 20, I'm just going on and on now here, but it's important. 2020 was not 2021. In 2020, for example, construction for a while was stopped. It couldn't work. Now we're hearing that it's booming. You can't find anyone to do any work. People are so busy. I don't know what the situation is with agriculture. They might have been severely impacted in 2020. Maybe farmers markets are back open and the food hub has gotten launched, and maybe there isn't $2.1 million of need for subsidization in 2021. I don't know. Maybe there is, but I just haven't heard that.
No, that's a good point. We'll come back on that. But to answer, follow up on your comment that you made, as well as trying to answer Commissioner Edwards' question. At this point, the labor market, for instance, changed in the pandemic, and there is a need for skilled labor or trained labor. I mean, that's where we are in order to have a full economic recovery. So if you take item number 1 of the proposal, Thurston Strong and the jobs program, it states that this is really a training program for new workers to develop a set of skills to reinvest on the job market. And the investment in Thurston County is $1.2 million, for instance. The overall program they are planning to implement is $2.2. So those are the activities. I will not be able to give you how many, at this point, how many individuals will be trained. It will be difficult for me to give you those tangible numbers. But this is the programmatic aspects, how they'd like to implement this program, for instance. And let's move to the minority enterprise investment, for instance. They're gonna issue grants to the minority-owned organizations who have been affected by the pandemic. It will be addressing a new minority business advisory council, outreach to establish a lender locally, and also help launch community cultural centers that perhaps have been affected by the pandemic. So those are all the overall activities they plan to do, but I will not be able to give you how many, because that would be impossible.
What's the new Minority Business Advisory Council? This is the first time I'm hearing about that.
I think they've heard that, Thurston Strong heard that, right? Can you elaborate on that, Jennifer?
Yes, this was part of the original proposal, and the EDC and Thurston Strong would be working towards establish a minority business advisory council and have a facilitator for the group to work within the economic development system to help with representation and advising on the Thurston Strong actions and from our partner organizations.
Okay. And just as a follow-up on my previous question in regards to the United Way, I would like to know the parameters on that. At this point, I'm not completely comfortable with proceeding with that, so I would like to know more information on, what are the parameters going to be set? What are the parameters that United Way is going to set moving forward? And just because I'm reading this just plainly and I hear what Robin said, there were several applications in the RHC that went through that were specifically COVID related. So what are the further parameters for this money going through? It is 1.5 million, and I'm not taking away the need for it, but I just want to know, is it going to be us, going through this process again? And I don't know. At this point, I'm not comfortable, and I would like to know more information.
Just quick follow-up on continuing this conversation, I guess. If we look at the Thurston Business Relaunch, the Minority Enterprise Investment, Thurston Ag, we're talking about 3/4 of the amount of money we're talking about dealing with here. And I think all of them, have they used up what they had? Is there a list of need ready to go right now? If we would launch our new Minority Business Advisory Council, if we had $200,000, we'd launch that tomorrow. I don't know. I'm just wondering, that's a big chunk of the whole thing, the Thurston Ag thing. Is that going towards that business park? Is it making sure that some farmers don't go belly up, if you will, and go out of business because of this whole process that we're behind? It seems like there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of money, and we're gonna make a decision in 5 minutes. And it bugs me that we don't have a little more background. What is the big rush? I'll stay late tonight if that's what it takes, or come in early tomorrow morning. I'd just like to have more discussion on actually, I don't wanna get always in the minutia of everything, but like Commissioner Menser said, he doesn't understand where some of that's going on ag. I don't either. Where's our ag rep? I'd like to hear more.
So a lot of times, for the public's benefit, what happens is we have our first, we don't get to talk outside this context.
No, this is
So
it.
a lot of times we have our first discussion amongst ourselves at this meeting, and then in the ensuing week, like, you know, we all walk out of here with a list of questions and then we do a lot of work. We have conversations, we talk to county manager, and we come back a week later and we're much better informed. Can we put this discussion on for a week?
Absolutely.
We're all gonna walk out of here with these questions and we'll go off in our own individual ways and get answers and come back with a better discussion next week. Is
Yeah,
that-
absolutely. I'll bring this item next week.
Is this worth having just a bit of a work session somewhere along the line on these questions that we've raised here today? And, you know, I mean, I'm the ag thing.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Stephen Bromwell, he's probably got the answer. So I
Yeah.
hate to make a decision just because he's off doing something else, doesn't even know we're gonna talk about this. That's not fair to him.
Right.
Or some of these other folks too, same
So,
thing.
What I understand is, next week, we're gonna delay this for next week, I appreciate that. And related to follow-up questions, related, I believe, how many grants we have issued back in 2020 that supported the agricultural market? And that information, Jenica is gonna get us to that point. And also,
I have a quick answer on that. We had between 60 to 70, and there were no applications that were not fulfilled.
But how many dollars, I guess, is, you had 60, 70 applications.
They were $10,000 grants per grant.
so it used up all the allocation the county put in.
So basically match the need.
Right.
We granted every application and it hit the mark. But this is 3 times that amount of money.
So what I can do is just maybe have additional information from Mr. Bramwell, and maybe we can convince him to be part of this conversation next week, Jenica, to give additional perspective related to the agricultural market, the 2.1 million. And also, can you get additional information related to the parameters on the United Way? What additional information you'd like to have, Commissioner here?
Well, I guess just an array of information. First off, I would like, was United Way given money last year?
Yeah.
I would like to kind of know who the grants went to and how much to each one, and then the parameters in regards to what they plan on doing this year, you know, with the rules that are being sent down, you know, kind of, I would like to know what process they plan on going through. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, I guess like in these different blocks where we're talking about giving money out, have they expended other money that we gave them already? Is it all expended, completely gone, or this group's got, no, this one's got 200,000 left? Everybody's broke right now.
And these are slightly different programs.
These different programs, because the coronavirus relief fund, the CRF funding, needed to be spent by December, so that has already spent and gone.
Okay.
And this is a revised program based on Thurston Strong, looking at the needs that is out there. So it's a little bit revised program from what Thurston Strong delivered last year.
Could you, for the public that might want to review this, you've got a lot of acronyms in here. I don't see where it says what they mean. They might mean something to us and it may not. But like the EDC, you know, I know all about the EDC because I'm on the EDC. So I think just jumping and doing this so quick makes me really nervous. And like I can see that a restaurant that almost went out of business because of all of this activity and restrictions, they didn't do so well. But one of the big major chain fast food places, they did exceptionally well because they had all those customers. You couldn't get in line long enough in some of those places. So I'm thinking they probably don't need any help. But it's the little mom and pop restaurant, the locally owned restaurant, that needs the help. And I would hope we're not entertaining grant money to an outfit that already got, 3 times their normal gross income came in because everybody else was shut down.
No, I appreciate that question. And any applicant has to show an impact.
Yeah.
And any applicant has to show what is the financial impact they have observed as a result of the pandemic. It will not be just you request money and we will give you the money. It has to be a link related to the impact of the COVID-19.
And I don't know that those requests or examples are vetted. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. You see on national TV all the time, this group got, $6.2 million. And one principal in the group went off and bought a new Lamborghini with his money, That's all I'm saying is I want to make sure here locally that we cover all our bases and don't have any abuses.
I think to answer that question, I think Thurston Strong has proven to be diligent with the money, not just the
I'm
county.
not questioning anybody.
So, in order to, have address your question in terms of making sure, then might as well we issue the grants.
No, I don't think so. I think,
I
think more than 5 minutes needs to be spent.
So I'm trying to address your concerns in a way, so trying to find a way to have that conversation. So we'll delay this for next week. If you have any additional questions in between, please let me know. So what I have is agricultural data, maybe add a key as to what the acronyms mean on this spreadsheet, Jenica. And then get additional information on United Way proposal based on Commissioner Mejia's perspective.
I think any information, I'm not just the grants, but I want to know what Steve Bramwell or whoever, I want somebody to make the case for the $2.1 million for agriculture for the future. Irrespective of what we did last year, that's one piece of the puzzle. And in fact, to be honest, that makes me think, the data that Jenica just provided just further reinforces my own concern, frankly, because she basically said, we provided every single applicant with a grant within the $750,000 we allocated. So 750 met the need in the height of the pandemic. We are now 1 year later, and I'm being proposed 3 times that amount of money. I need to know why that's going to be the best use of those resources, given all the other problems we have in this county.
And I want to follow up on that because everybody was given an equal amount. It sounds like $10,000 met all the need. But what about that individual that lost $87,000 and he's got a mortgage payment coming up?
I'm not saying there isn't a case to be made. I just need to hear it.
That is a good question because, and that is probably the outreach is the need is still there because of that.
Yeah.
Because the grant was limited to a certain amount, but perhaps didn't address.
So they really had that excessive need to make their mortgage payment to keep them being productive farmers. And I would make that same argument on the Thurston business relaunch, for an example. I'd like to hear from the EDC and have them just say, yeah, we spent that, what you gave us earlier, and this is what we got in the request bin right now.
Wherever these numbers came from, just a little more information as to how they got there would help us feel like these are
Will that give you enough time, a week, Jenica, to get all this? Okay.
But now we've got fireworks to handle.
Fireworks.
Do we have 12:43?
We gotta do fireworks.
Because of the deadline.
Tell me what restrictions are we up against on time? That we're gonna get in trouble now because we're over a certain time on a meeting?
I want to be respectful of your time, Commissioner.
Oh, I'll work until 5 o'clock tonight. I don't care, or 10 o'clock. I don't care.
You can work until o'clock.
Okay, well.
So, and this is a yearly event where Resolution 15308 allows the county manager, after consulting with fire marshals and other officials, as may deem appropriate, may prohibit the discharge of concerned fireworks during the periods of extreme fire danger. The prohibition shall be taken effect 1 day prior to the date of consumer fireworks are legally sold under RCW Chapter 7077. So this, the legally sold fireworks starts on June 28th, so that decision needs to be made by this Friday by the county manager. And I have been consulting with Josh, the fire marshal for the county, as well as emergency services. And based on what was said in last week, I didn't see the need of implementing this ban of discharge, but the weather conditions are changing. Yesterday we have over 90-degree temperatures, And the forecast, although seems to be a little bit cooling period this week, but this coming weekend, we're gonna be over probably 100-degree temperatures in one day, which put a little bit of a interesting situation. So at this point, I am not in the position to make that determination. So I will be making that determination by the end of this week based on the advice by the fire marshal as well as the fire districts they're going to be reaching out to. Josh?
Thank you, Romero. Yeah, I see Sandy is here. Myself and emergency services have been watching the climate, the weather data. One of the things to keep in mind that's really important is the fuel sources. And so you remember we had that big rain a couple of weeks ago, or just rained and rained and rained. That made everything grow and grow and grow and grow. And then we've been dry and hot. So all of that new growth is increased fuel source. And so what we're looking at is the potential fuel sources increased, the temperature current increase, and the dryness of the weather. And that's what we're going to base our recommendations on, as well as outreach to DNR and the fire chiefs here locally. And we'll provide our recommendation to Ramiro as soon as we feel comfortable with the data that we receive. This is a tough issue on both sides. This is not another easy one. We recognize the difficulty in this potentially banning the discharge of fireworks. But from our perspective, mine is the fire marshal and Kurt's as the emergency services director. It could be potentially about lives and property. So this is not an easy one, but know that we're on it and we're trying to make a decision or a recommendation to the county manager based on data and information.
So Josh, I'm gonna be out of the office Thursday and Friday, so I will be delegating that authority to you.
He's not joking either.
To the fire marshal?
Yeah, I'm be delegating that authority to you, fire marshal.
Accepted with broad shoulders.
Yep, deputy fire marshal or somebody. I do have a question. I didn't hear a long-range outlook to 4th of July, because isn't that the worst day that we have for this problem is the 4th of July, if you want to call it a problem?
Yeah, according to my handy-dandy weather app.
Okay.
Today I'm gonna just give you the high temperatures.
Okay.
Today 76, tomorrow 77, Thursday 80, Friday 90, Saturday 99, Sunday 101. Then Monday cools down to 79, then 78 on Tuesday, Wednesday 78, Thursday, which is July 1st, 82, Friday 82, which leads to the 4th of July, high of 78.
Okay, so we don't have any rain in the forecast is what I'm hearing.
Through the whole period is 0.
In the extended forecast.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So the next 25% precipitation is July 6th.
So that something will come along and put the fire out, huh?
So we're banning fireworks for the 4th of July?
Discharge.
We don't know yet.
If that is the question at hand.
Does she know the process?
I do not know the process.
Explain the fact that over history, we've evolved to a process, which is why I think we've got this ordinance. It's buried in here somewhere.
So
But
it includes.
county manager in consultation with the fire marshal gets to make a determination by June 30th. Is that right?
So let me take you back, not to all of you, to myself,
Yeah.
back in 2016. When the Board of County Commissioners at that time were contemplating banning fireworks similar to the city's banning of fireworks. That will be sales, distribution, and discharge. That was probably one of the most contentious public hearings that I have attended. And the result of the public testimony, and since we were leading to the deadlines, because there's a deadline of now the legislature has changed that, but at that time is if any jurisdictions who enact banning of fireworks, period, sale, distribution, discharge, it has to be a whole year waiting period. So it will take effect in 2017. So it was pivotal for the board to take an action one way or the other at that time. That, I believe the legislature has changed this year that you don't have that waiting period, but that's a different conversation. So the result of that public hearing, on the spot, the board was weighing in as to what options do we have. And that's what it landed this ordinance, in which they authorized the county manager, after consultation with the fire marshal and emergency services, to make a determination to ban the discharge, not the sale and distribution, the discharge due to extreme weather conditions. That's the only parameter that we have. And that decision needs to be based this year by June 27th. Because under the statute, the official sale of fireworks begin June 28th.
So the board deferred this authority. So you're just giving us a report, right? We don't have to, we didn't do anything.
No, yeah. So you can blame it on the county manager. In this case, you can blame it on the fire marshal.
Okay, and we'll get word about that by the end of the week.
Yep.
All right.
Let me.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I just wanted to again reiterate that the goal here is a process based on data, and that we have. So the 27th is the last possible date that we can make this determination. But going back, Friday is the last workday, so you'll know what the recommendation and the decision is at that point. But it's tough to. Either way, this is a difficult issue, as the county manager said, one of the most contentious public hearings. But the goal here, again, is life and property. And so that's what our decision will be based upon.
The issue's tough, Josh, but is it guardrail tough?
No fish will be harmed.
All right, thank you guys.
I'll work with Megan to start preparing a news release one way or the other.
Hey, I know we're jammed up for time and we want to get out of here, but I have one issue I gotta bring up on commissioners' items, just squeeze one in. And that is the daycare issue down in Rochester. And I think all of you received something from the Weaver family about this. And I don't understand how here we are telling people that we're promoting daycare regulation that's less regulated to encourage more daycares being created. And then at the same time, we have this situation that comes up. And so
I thought we had a solution coming.
Oh, that's what I'm wondering about.
I
Did
have-
we have a solution coming? I haven't heard.
I have a meeting with the Director of Public Works and Director of CPID tomorrow. And I will be prepared to give you a response after that.
Okay. And I guess that took care of that. See how fast I was?
Yep, good. All right, guys, we're adjourned then, back at 2 p.m. Thank you.
Okay.